Chair, you have a live mic.
All right, Ms. Patterson, where does that bring us to?
That brings us to item 11C, which is a recommendation to approve spending up to $10,000 for appraisal and pre-contract expenses for due diligence and authorize staff to transmit a non-binding letter of intent to commence negotiations for the purchase of 10.9 plus minus acres of property at 299 Creative Drive, Naples, for the Collier County Sheriff's Office District 5 substation. And Mr. Ed Finn, your Deputy County Manager, is here to present.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Ed Finn, Deputy County Manager. Item 11C seeks board authorization to make a non-binding offer to purchase 10.9 acres to construct a District 5 substation for the Collier County Sheriff and utilize up to $10,000 to do some appraisals and some other work leading up to a contract to be presented to the board. General location. The upper middle of this map shows the current location at Patriot Place. That's a lease that the Sheriff's Office has been in since 2017. In the lower section, towards the right-hand side, is the proposed 10-acre site. A little closer view of the 10-acre site, and I will flip back if Commissioner Saunders seems to be scrutinizing that location. That's the way the location looks. And if I may, some considerations. Since at least 2019, the Sheriff has included this substation as well as a North District 1 substation on his AUIR relative to Category B law enforcement facilities. They've indicated that the subject site is suitable for a District 5 substations. It is, as I understand it, located in agricultural zoning, which will allow for the this essential service. Property is listed at $2.5 million. In-house appraisal is roughly $2 million. If approved, the county manager or designee will transmit a letter of intent for $2 million. We will initiate the appraisal process, and if agreeable terms are reached, we will return to the board for approval. With that, it is our recommendation to approve this. I will answer any questions or concerns that we might have.
I guess my question would be, this is fine and dandy for the 10,000 for the appraisal and all that, but then what? What are we looking at down the road if we purchase this for $2 million? Then what are the taxpayers looking at as the whole picture?
We would probably be building a facility in the 3,500 to 5,000 square foot range. We would be providing storage on this location for the sheriff as well. In all probability, the construction cost would be between $4.5 and $6.5 million in addition to the acquisition cost. And I'm going to quickly say that all of this would be part of our due diligence. We would be working up this very thing. When we bring it back to you, we would have a little more thorough analysis than square foot times assumed square footage. We would actually put a little pen to paper and do a little more work so the board was fully informed. I will tell you that in next year's budget, as we develop it, we are continuing the county manager's desire to ensure that some funding is available for purchases of property that provide a good opportunity for us. This is an opportunity for us to do this. And as importantly, our colleague, the sheriff, relative to the strategic plan, is certainly ranked up high in terms of public safety. We have an obligation to try to advance the ball for his needs.
Sure. Is the current lease, is it in jeopardy?
No, sir. The current lease is approximately $78,000 a year. And in fact, on this agenda, you renewed that lease. So we are in good shape. But as you know, the speed...
He just wants his own house.
He certainly does. The speed of government is such that if we don't start relatively soon, it's going to take forever. And things only cost more as you delay, as you well know.
Well, you hit on my points. I was just wanting to know, when you're putting pen to paper, just the rate of return, how long it's going to take for actual construction, where we're at with the current outgo, as far as paying rent goes, and approximately what the term is on that?
Yes, sir. Completely agree. With that, it is our recommendation to proceed. I hope that meets with your approval, sir.
And I'll make that motion.
I have one quick question. The funding, as Commissioner Hall was saying, from start to finish, is that all Collier County, or the sheriff's throwing in some dollars when this building finally gets designed and built, or if it got that far? What pots does it come out of?
Commissioner, it is the board's responsibility to provide the sheriff's facilities. It's the county manager's responsibility to carry those plans out. This would, in fact, be general county funds insofar as impact fees aren't available.
And how long has this been talked about?
This has been on the AUIR since 2019. The sheriff moved to the current facility he's leasing in 2017. I suspect that when that was discussed, I'm sure there was a desire at that point to construct the facility.
Anybody got any other questions? Or I'll second the motion unless there's a question. I'll second it.
All right. Motion and seconded to approve the 10,000 for the appraisal and all that. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
So moved.
Commissioner Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Chairman, if I may, I have to, I'm probably gonna excuse myself at 7:45 or 7:45 my time, but I guess 1:45 your time. For the rest of the meeting, if it's okay.
All right. Night-night.
We'll dock your pay.
That's what we pick him
I
to
just,
chair
I'm
all
gonna get
those.
ready to come back.
Commissioner Cole, as soon as you sign off, that's when we vote to have you chair a whole bunch of subcommittees. And I think it's going to be
Okay.
unanimous.
Whatever. I'm up for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioners, item 11D is a recommendation that the Board of County Commissioners accept an update on the performance of the Florida Culinary Accelerator at Immokalee. And Mr. Cormac Giblin, your Housing Policy and Economic Development Director, is here to present.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Cormac Giblin. I want to run you through a brief slideshow about a little bit about what the Culinary Accelerator is and some of the activities going on out there. To start with, what is the Accelerator? It is a licensed commercial space certified for food production. The county operates it. We rent it, essentially rent it out by the hour, day, or month, depending on levels of membership levels of memberships that are purchased from the county. Everybody using the space needs to have their own licenses and permits, which are renewed annually. And what we do is provide equipment and space for startup food businesses, requiring minimal capital investment from them so they can easily achieve the necessary licensing that they need. It provides a beneficial environment for like-minded entrepreneurs to collaborate and exchange information, ideas, and contacts. In the picture, you have our food scientist from UF-IFAS assisting one of our members who is Reshma from Karina's Manufacturing. Where is the accelerator? It's located at the Immokalee Airport. We've been there since about we'll get that in the next slide, but it's in Immokalee near the crossroads of a couple major state arterials. The mission of the Culinary Accelerator is to promote economic development through diversity and local economy through growth and development of food-related businesses. The accelerator was designed to allow new business startups to capitalize on the county's abundant agricultural and transportation resources while stimulating innovation in the local economic resiliency for the Immokalee area through food service, education, job creation, and entrepreneurship. A little bit of history. On May 13th, 2014, the Board of County Commissioners approved that the Collier County Accelerator Project be run by a nonprofit organization called Economic Incubators, Inc., EII, and the Florida Culinary Accelerator Immokalee was opened in 2018. Later, in April of 2019, the board directed the county manager to assume all management and operational aspects of the accelerator programs. And then in late fiscal year 23, those responsibilities were transferred over to the growth management department. The picture here is Chef Daniela, a member of the accelerator, working on some of her pastries. The accelerator was majorly outfit using grant funding. There was an initial grant of $2.5 million from the Florida DEO, of which $568,000 went to the Culinary Accelerator. There was another $112,536 grant from the USDA for the purchase of commercial kitchen equipment with additional matching funds that came from EII at that time. And then another $1.2 million grant from the DEO to EII was in 2016 for build out of the facility and equipment necessary to build out the food scientists laboratory, the commercial kitchen, and the packaging facilities. Of note, all of the grants that have been received by the facility have met or exceeded all of their performance requirements, and their periods of performance have since expired. Steps for membership in the Food Accelerator: we help entrepreneurs form businesses. They must form their business through an LLC, a corporation, or other entity. They need to register with SunBiz. They register with the Florida Department of Revenue. They pay their county tax receipts. They achieve food safety training certifications. They get their permits. They must have proof of liability insurance, a process authority letter, which is has to do with on how certain foods are packaged, and they sign a contract with the county for use of the accelerator. And this picture is an organization called Canine Kitchen, they are a human-grade pet food manufacturer who are members out at the facility. The facility itself is licensed by several regulatory agencies, including DBPR and USDA, FDA. That is one of the major hurdles and advantages that the accelerator provides to new businesses, is achieving those licensors or license approvals, and having a facility that is regularly inspected is quite an upfront cost, and so the county provides that for them. The types of food businesses that are created at the accelerator have been restaurants, catering companies, bakeries, food trucks, coffee and beverage, produces, manufactured goods, and even as I mentioned before, the human-grade pet foods. This picture is Judy from Judy's Cakes is in this picture, or I'm sorry, Judy's Bakery. She was actually she was the first member of the accelerator, and also its first success story, where she has since graduated from the program and opened a real brick and mortar business of her own that is still in business today in the Golden Gate area. There are other shared commercial kitchens in Florida. Here's a sampling of some of them. Some of them are publicly run, as is Collier County's. Some are public-private partnerships, and some are private, but they range at there are commercial kitchens around the state in existence, and we are by no means trying to reinvent the wheel here. Some of the community benefit that's come from the accelerator is that there have been 46 businesses created with about 130 jobs, and we've had 23 businesses graduate and move on to permanent locations in Collier County. There are 29 businesses of the 46 are in fact still in existence today, with 21 of them right here in Collier County. And then of the total created, 10 lasted less than 2 years, but 33 lasted for more than 2 years, which is quite a success story, especially when you're talking about the food-related industries, where they have a failure rate of more than 50% in the first year or two. So these are exceeding the national averages. Some of the program alumni that are highlighted here, we have Chef Hyde from Hyde and Chic Restaurant, who has his restaurant in Naples. We've got, again, I mentioned Judy's Bakery, Judy Jessica's in Golden Gate. The Wholesome Hound, which is a pet store in downtown Naples. They were members of the accelerator doing their food-grade pet food. Habaneros Cafe and Catering, which is actually right downstairs in the government center. They are members of the accelerator. And Food Rock Restaurant and Food Truck is another business that has graduated from the accelerator. Today, if you'd be so inclined, you have a few options that you can consider. One is to consider current operations and direct staff to keep doing what we're doing. Another may be to explore possible revenue generating or net cost saving opportunities through enhancement of opportunities. This would be providing refreshments and food for county activities such as coffee with the commissioner, new hire orientation, work anniversaries, even so far as providing food for parks and rec areas, festivals, that sort of thing. We also have a strategic partnership with, or possible partnership with the emergency management folks. The center is out of the hazard area for when a disaster hits the coastal areas. It has a backup generator that has enough fuel to run for 7 days off the grid and has enough cooking fuel to last for a month. It has refrigeration that can make ice and store cold foods and prepare meals for hundreds of people if needed. Another option would be to seek an alternate operator for the facility through some type of ITN process. You could decide to close the facility and liquidate all the assets, or any other ideas you may have. With that, that's the general update on how the accelerator has been running, what it does, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Mr. McDaniel?
Yes, do you have a current budget with regard to income and expenses? Because I didn't see that as part of the backup here.
The current budget is a little over $300,000 a year. Of that, about $40,000 comes in from the membership, sales of memberships or collection of membership dues.
Budgeted expenses or budgeted revenue?
The revenue is $40,000 in membership dues, and the rest of the balance of the budget is made up of the Seminole Compact grant that comes to the county through the state government from the Seminole tribe.
You said expenses are 300,000 plus?
Correct, per year.
That's what I was looking for.
Commissioner LaCastro?
Cormac, how many current businesses are using the accelerator right now or operating out of there?
There are 13 right now.
Okay, and they're in there permanently, or just sort of, they go in there periodically? I mean, I know, correct me if I'm wrong, because we sort of tout the salsa company as a big success. She's in there pretty much permanently, right? She never went to brick and mortar, even after being, I think, 3 years in business, correct?
Correct. She's looking for a spot, but yes.
Okay. Are there other people that have been in there that long or that permanent? Because I like what you said when you said this, and I'm summarizing, this is sort of a catalyst to get them jump-started to sort of get their own thing. But when I hear somebody's been in there for 3 years paying us what I understand, because I had a little briefing on this, maybe we all did, that, she's a successful company and, everybody applauds that, but she pays about $2,000 for the space, and which is a great deal. If I was her, I wouldn't be looking very hard for a brick and mortar place, especially if I wasn't being chased out of this startup accelerator factory. So I don't love that. I'm not slamming her business or not looking for it to go out of business. But an accelerator is just that. It helps you jumpstart, and then you turn into a brick and mortar. And so I'll go back to my original question. So she's pretty much permanent, but like you said, we hope looking. The other, you said there's 13?
Correct.
I said, give me a rough idea. Are they all about the same? They've been there for several years. They're kind of looking, but they pay us, $2,000 to use a $25,000 a month facility. I mean, if a company was using this permanently, it would cost them way more than $2,000, because I understand it's full of top-of-the-line equipment and all that. But as you said, it was stocked that way when a ribbon was cut on it to jumpstart businesses and then, force them out the door at some point. Of these 13 other businesses, do you know offhand, how many of them have been there more than a year or more than 2 years? I mean, I think the salsa company is probably the one with the most seniority. Is that correct?
Yeah, she's the only one who's been there for what I'd call an extended.
Who else would you say? And I mean,
right now we have, as I said, 13. There are 7 of them are food manufacturing. They do sauces, honey.
But more than a year, those places, the 7,
They're close.
Do we do anything to kind of wean them off of the, accelerator factory and say, you need to kind of move on. This isn't a permanent, good deal where you pay us $2,000 and we keep the $300,000 facility open. Because, I mean, if you do the math, if you have 10, 20 people in there, this is an investment the county is making at a loss to start up businesses. But if they sort of linger in the accelerator warehouse for a while, I don't know that it really is doing what fully doing what at least I as a taxpayer would want it to do.
Yeah, and
What can you
Commissioner,
tell us?
That's one of the things that I think was lost in the program in the transition from EII to the county. EII, their board was made up of local entrepreneurs with connections to universities and other business people in the community. And so they had more of a soft landing after graduation. There were those resources that were available to them to find their eventual brick and mortar location. That's one thing that we strive to improve on, is we need to develop a clear graduation strategy to help these businesses make that move, because it is very I have worked with Reshma trying to help her find a spot where she can put her operation.
But she's not really enticed financially.
Her what's enticing her right now, she's basically outgrown the facility.
Yeah.
Is she needs more than the facility itself can even offer anymore. So she is motivated. It's just difficult.
But
to
she
find.
doesn't have a timeline, like you said. It's sort of a loose. Hey, and I mean, you could make the case and say, would you want to have a dozen businesses and they're operating in perpetuity at $2,000 a month? No, because my position would be, if after a year they were all forced to leave and some of those businesses didn't survive, and it's like, well, if you need the sort of nearly free space provided by the county to keep your business profitable, then maybe you really have a hobby. You don't have a business. You haven't grown it to the extent like the cake lady did, where she can go to a brick and mortar. And if everybody was graduated after a year or two, and there weren't enough new businesses to come in to replace, then maybe the program's sort of outgrown its shelf life. I'm just talking out loud. I'm not saying that's my position. But, $300,000 to keep a high-end kitchen available for, a handful of folks is something that I think we definitely want to talk about. Lastly, and this came in my pre-brief yesterday, so the money we get from the Indian tribe, right? That's not a guarantee every year, and we're waiting. We don't know yet if we're going to get it for this next whatever it is fiscal year.
The
Correct.
compact was just renegotiated by the governor and the tribe.
So we're waiting to say. So one of the questions you have for us is, if we didn't get that money, and maybe you don't need that answer today, what would our position be as commissioners? Hey, keep it going, but take $300,000 out of the general fund, or hey, sell it off, and the state program, the Indian tribe program has ended, right? I mean, we're at that that's a decision point as well, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Commissioner McDaniel?
I think I saw some documentation in the backup, the depreciated value of the assets.
$219,807.
Okay. I'm going to make a suggestion here that we, if it meets with the board's approval, of course, but that we go out for an ITN, put this piece of this asset that the county has up for bid, sell those assets. I'd like to know. I know what our depreciated value is, but I'd like to know what the market value is as well before the actual ITN goes out, because I don't want to just dump it for the depreciated value if there is room there for it. And within the ITN, I would like to have, because there are 13 users that are there now, and I'd like to have some kind of if a new operator that would like to utilize the facility, I would like to have some kind of an accommodation for what to do with the businesses that are current members that are there now, so that we're not just throwing people out. Now, if somebody comes and wants to buy it and they don't have any intention of running it as an accelerator anymore, then that's a decision that we'll make once we actually go through this ITN process. But if it is the decision of the board to continue to operate this as an accelerator, we have to establish some definite parameters on how long folks can stay, so on and so forth. This isn't a place to come run your business forever. It was, you saw my ugly mug on that ribbon cutting there, and
I saw it.
yeah. And I mean, the advent of this project came in advance of my tenure as commissioner, but I've watched it go through, and we lost some time with the debacle with, I call it a debacle, with the issues with the EII and so on and so forth, and we certainly don't want to travel down that path. But if you're looking for a motion, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we go forward on that ITN.
Commissioner Saunders?
I agree with just about everything you said. I'm a little concerned about
Except
the
my
motion.
ugly mug thing.
No, that I certainly agreed with. I was going to second that part of it. I think we've got 13 users in there, and I think we ought to put them on notice that this facility is going to close. Because it sounds like you're going to do an ITN. We don't know what we're going to get from that. But I think we need to let the 13 tenants know that, pick a date, July 31, 2025. Collier County is no longer funding anything there. The facility theoretically could close, so that they can start, they'll have a year to make some other arrangements to go somewhere else, or they can flip a coin and run the risk of staying and hoping that somebody else comes in and takes it over. But I think it's probably time for us to get out of that business. So if that's a motion, if we can kind of add a little bit to it, to put some notice in there and that sort of thing, I would support that.
Okay, I'm okay with making the motion for the ITN. I'd rather not today pick a date certain that it's going to close. I think it's the will of the board, at least if I'm hearing what I'm hearing, it's the will of the board for us to not be in this business any longer. I would rather we explore the opportunity for the disposition of the assets, the release of the facility, asking that ITN for a new operator's consideration for the existing people that we have, and then we could pick a time certain as to when we're going to be out of there.
And the only reason I suggested giving a date now and giving it a fairly long lead was that we'll spend the next 3 or 4 or 5 months developing the ITN, getting responses, and then evaluating it. And we don't know what the outcome of that's going to be, but at that point in time, if we don't get something that's satisfactory, then we're going to be faced with the same question: do we close this, and how much notice do we give them? Sure. And I was just thinking in terms of, if I was a business person in there,
I'm not. If I heard June 25 out of you,
July 31, 2025.
July 31 of 25 as the date certain, we're going to close it, then I can make that as part of my motion.
If the board is of the opinion that we should not.
I'm not opposed to that. I candidly, I think that's a minute premature until we get an actual look at the ITNs, because based on Jamie's moving up to the mic now, but based on my conversations yesterday, I think this ITN can go out in fairly short order. We can keep the term fairly short. As far as the length of time for propositions to come in, so we could be back here in 60, 90 days. Do you think?
Yes, sir. Thank you. For the record, my name is Jamie French. I'm your Growth Management Department head. Commissioners, the only thing I might suggest is that we give perhaps first right of refusal and offer the ITN, or at least advertise the ITN for the current applicants that are, for the current participants that are there, if there's a level of interest in to acquire this asset. The other thing is that you're fully funded through the end of this budget year, unless Mr. Finn corrects me. So we've got until September 30 to actually, we're funded through then. Outside of that, this would be included in next year's budget for your consideration if there was any future funding. But we'd like to get this back to you much sooner than that. Go through the ITN process, at least allow the people that are there, it's going to be advertised anyway, but maybe pay special attention to those folks to let them know that this has gone to ITN. We don't know we won't know unless whoever buys it what the future for this facility may look like. And of course, whoever would come in would certainly have to qualify with the Board of County Commissioners to be able to take over that lease, because it is on your airport property.
I have no problem with, drop the subject that I just brought up and just go with your motion, that'll be fine. And then we can come back in a few
And I'm
minutes.
not interested in a first right of refusal for the existing ones. I mean.
My apologies, just.
It's
just
not
let me
a,
know.
and just to correct the statement, you start to put precedent on someone else's ability to make an offer on the facility over someone that's not already currently where now. And that's part of what after we get done with this, I want to make sure that we're advertising this to the world, to as many people as possible, so that, and, you know, there again, we can certainly notify all of the current members that we have. And Commissioner Saunders, do you want me to withdraw the date certain portion?
Yeah, I think,
I think we're going to get there in short order, and by the end of September, we're going to be able to say, we're only going to fund this for another 6 months or something like that. We can make that decision in September. So, so my motion will be to go out with an ITN to sell the assets and someone to take over the lease. And within that, I would like, within the ITN, I would like some sort of statement if a new operator comes, what their intentions to work with the current membership that we have.
I'll second that then.
So just to clarify, because I'm confused a little bit, are we selling the building or are we just
No,
selling
no.
the business of it?
Just the
the
assets of the
operation.
business. Yeah,
Okay,
not
s-
the building itself.
Equipment.
Okay, so whoever comes in would lease that back to us at a
That's
certain
correct.
cost.
We own the building already, if I'm not
The,
mistaken.
the airport owns the building. We lease it from the airport.
Okay.
Airport Authority, we're the airport authority.
All right. And what happens to the grant money if we terminate this? Do we still get to do anything we want to do with the money, or is it specifically tied to the accelerator?
You've met all the obligations of the grants, so you do not need to worry about any clawback.
So if they decide to continue it, then that's free money.
Yes.
Good. You know,
Money that doesn't have to be paid back, it's not free.
well, it's not tied to it. It's not limiting. So
Wait, I
by,
just had
by
a,
not being limiting, it's free to do. So one of us has a sign on their door, if you find yourself in a hole, to quit digging. And I totally concur with that statement when it comes to this incubator. So,
let me ask
Mr. McCastro.
Cormac, the 300,000 that we're currently have in our hands right now from the current funding, that expires when?
Well, it's the county budget, so it would go
Okay.
through 9/30. The 2025 budget would pick up on 10/1, should you wish to include it in the 2025 budget.
Okay, but if the Indian tribe comes to us down the road with another check and we're in the middle of possibly selling the business or what have you, we have to say no to that
Those
money?
funds are not limited to only the accelerator
Yeah, and
activities.
you sort of said that, so I just wanted to clarify that, okay? And then we could brainstorm other things. I got it.
Yeah, and that compact money has nothing to do with the accelerator. It's just been a revenue that our administration's been utilizing to offset the deficit of the operations here. So when it's not if, when the compact money does come to us, we have the capacity to utilize it in any manner necessary.
Doesn't sound like right now it's best utilized for this, you know?
Well, the original language in the compact was that it's intended to offset the effects of legalized gambling, and the casino is in Immokalee, and so it was, let's use it somewhere in Immokalee to lift up the local economy.
And we have been doing that. We set aside a large portion. You know, if you'll recall, there was a subdivision that the land was donated by Collier Enterprises over on the east side of Immokalee. They spent $1 million to put in a road and water and sewer, and then we did, I think it's called the Learning Center. I
Yes.
think
Yes,
it's
that's
called the
correct.
Learning Center. It's 13, 14 houses, and they brought BCB, Bohr and Craig and Barber, were the general contractors on that development, and they brought kids from iTech that were in electrical and engineering and plumbing and carpentry and the whole kit and caboodle, and those kids are actually working on the construction.
Yeah,
of
we're
those
still,
homes.
and they're still building them.
And we offset the impact fees for those 13 or 14 homes out of that compact money
Early Learning Coalition.
a couple of years ago. So that money that comes from the compact is discretionary money that the county can utilize for virtually anything. I know one of my remembrances is it got put into the Immokalee Fire Department. Some money got put into the Immokalee Fire Department. We used it for the offset for the expense on the Immokalee, or the fire department in Ave Maria several years ago, well before both of you came online. So with that, that's my, do you need me to repeat it, or you got? Yeah, I can't remember now.
The motion is to direct staff to put out an ITN to the world,
Yes, and then,
liquidate the assets of the,
and make sure we have the notice where the publications are going. Make sure we have access to where all those, where all that advertisement is in fact all.
Or just a point of clarification, is the ITN to solicit a new operator for a shared commercial kitchen, or the ITN to someone to come in and do whatever they want in the kitchen?
It's an offer to, it's an ITN to sell the assets of the, of the facility. And that could be an operator, but it's to dispose of those assets and lease the facility back.
I think in fairness to the people that are in there, although I agree, maybe we don't set a date today, making them aware that we're moving in that direction, so they have as much, lead time as possible, because it's not going to be, it's no longer infinite.
They're aware. I was on the phone with Rashma's husband this morning on the way into this meeting. So, I would assume they're aware.
so I guess I have a question. With the ITN to liquidate the assets, to find market value based on, and not the depreciated value, are we also going to include in that ITN to open it up to anyone who wants to come in and operate anything else in that building, or are we going to do that separately? Like, what if somebody wanted to come in and,
I think that would be a bridge we cross after this. This facility is, have you ever been there before?
I'm not? no.
Okay. So it's set up to be a commercial kitchen with refrigeration and cooking facilities and storage. There's office space, there's meeting space, there's all kinds of space that's in this facility. So let's do the ITN to dispose of the assets and take over the lease of the facility. And then based upon what responses we get for that, then we can make a determination as to if somebody wants to buy the assets and take them to another building, then we'll have that building to be able to lease out to do something with.
But if somebody wants to come in and put an auto parts store in that building, we're going to put that,
They're gonna
address that
pay,
at a separate
they're
time.
gonna pay us for the restaurant equipment in order to do that. They
Sure.
can't put an auto parts store in there
No, I got you.
without buying the commercial ovens.
Okay, so the motion is for an ITN to liquidate the assets. And it's been seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 11E. This is a recommendation to accept an update on current service and staffing levels at the 10 Collier County Public Libraries. The presentation discusses realigning of hours of operation to optimize service with our current staffing levels that will best continue to serve patron demand and meet expectations. Ms. Catherine Kauser, your library director, is here to present.
Let's see. Okay, we've got it up here. I would like to say good afternoon to the board. Most of you know me, but I'll introduce myself again. I'm Catherine Kauser, Division Director of Libraries.
Stay on the mic.
Oh, don't walk around. Okay.
My mother will be chirping at me in a minute.
She can't hear me. Okay. I have just a short presentation for you. So we have, Collier County provides clean, safe, and inviting spaces to the public with 10 library locations. Collier County Libraries provide approximately 475 public service hours weekly. At our 3 regional libraries, there's 5 community libraries, and our 2 neighborhood libraries. The Immokalee branch libraries open about 40 hours a week, and our Everglades branches open 32.5. The library provides multiple services and programs for the public, which face pressure to continue as the current quantity and quality offered due to staffing shortages. This slide just shows our adult programming, some statistics, youth programming, library spaces. circulation and reference that's offered, and our technology services. If you have questions about that later, I can come back to one of those slides. But early literacy and story times have always been a priority at Collier County Public Library. And in fiscal year 2023, we held over 1,100 programs for children and teens across our 9 locations with an attendance of almost 45,000. Here, this slide just shows an average story time at our headquarters library that attracts a weekly audience, a biweekly audience. We have 2 story times every week of over 70 people. Adult programming. In fiscal year 23, we held 724 programs with a total attendance of almost 82,000. Our last big event was the Eclipse that we had in April 2020. Nobody else offered Eclipse classes or Eclipse programming, and we had over 587 people at the courtyard at our headquarters location. And the public knows how many unique services we provide and the skills and commitment of staff who do what it takes to provide relevant materials and programs to all ages. What the public doesn't see directly is the background operations of the library. We have a collection development and maintenance team that acquires, develops, and manages library collections, both our physical materials and our digital offerings. We purchased and processed over 45,000 physical materials valued at approximately $800,000, and over 24,000 ebooks were purchased valued at approximately $400,000. This group also provides collection and acquisition analysis, and they balance in proportion to actual use and evaluate the cost effectiveness of current and future resources. We also do business operations, communications, marketing, and professional development are performed by librarians, accountants, and managers. The next slide shows some benchmarks about staffing. So the library's total FTEs have decreased since fiscal year 19. And most recently, just between fiscal year 24 and 25, we've had another reduction of 4 FTEs. And you probably all know this, but when I say FTEs, that's a full-time. And then when I say positions, the library has lots of part-time positions also. So I'll interchange the data, kind of gives you a comparison of that. What I need to tell you now is that, is Collier County overstaffed? Are Collier County libraries overstaffed to begin with? No. This graph shows comparable staffing. This is Collier County staffing level remains below comparable library systems in Florida. Every year, the state library and the Florida Department of State puts out a comparison so that you can see where we are. This is library FTEs per 10,000 residents. Collier is near the lowest of the counties that we compare ourselves to. The next slide just shows details of the distribution of current staff. Just so you can see, similar, that regional libraries has similar staffing in our neighborhood libraries and our neighborhood libraries. But we've averaged more than one resignation per month over the past fiscal year. This shows what our current staffing is. Empty positions range from managers to entry-level library specialists. An entry-level position in the library pays close to the lowest of the classifications at an entry-level pay of $17.57. To realign our hours of operation and to optimize our services, we have proposed the following changes to weekly hours. The far left column shows the branch, what district it's in, what our current hours are, what our proposed hours are, and what the change in hours are for each of those branches. The graph to the right shows, just a small collection. You'll see that Everglades City isn't going to change, and the Immokalee Branch Library is not going to change. And then you'll just see the weekly hours. Okay, my next slide shows where do we get the proposed cut in hours. This is because we have an integrated library system that actually shows circulation per hour, and I can pull door count stats per hour per location, except for Everglades. But what this data shows is that at our regional libraries, when I look at my hourly data, this shows that both Naples Regional and South Regional have significant drop-offs starting at 5 p.m. So less than 10% of our daily footfall occurs after 5 p.m. at these 2 locations. The next slide shows my branch visit data where I'm considering cutting Saturday hours at the community libraries. We can reduce 4 hours at 3 of our community libraries, Estates Branch, Golden Gate, and Marco Island. A shift of 10 to 2 makes sense in terms of staffing and visits. The next slide shows the largest proposed cut in hours for our 2 neighborhood libraries, East Naples and Vanderbilt Beach Libraries. This shows a distribution of patron visits each day. We have a planned decrease in 20 hours per week per location. The hours that we plan to stay open at these 2 branches show between 55 and 60% of our footfall that we would still retain or can be pushed to other near regional libraries. I can give you an example. Just at East Naples, if I take one day at East Naples, I can show that from 9 to 10, I have 8 people walk in. From 10 through 2 p.m., I have about 24 people walk in during each of those hours, and then after 3 p.m., I'm down to 10 or 11 people, and that's during season. With Resource X and priority-based budgeting, you have asked us to reflect on the minimum staff levels. And with reduced hours, we could propose a savings in this number of staff. So I broke down every library, starting with South Regional, and the proposed staff that I could get by with if we were going to continue these hours, whether the cut in the hours was permanent or just temporary. I need to increase 1 staff member at South Regional. East Naples, I could get down to 1 FTE there, 2 part-time people for the whole week. Marco Island, I could retain 5 FTEs. We're only cutting 4 hours a week from them. Headquarters, I have 16 FTEs. Vanderbilt Beach, I could get down to 1 FTE. Golden Gate, 5 FTEs. Naples Regional, 9. And Estates Branch 4. Immokalee, we wouldn't change. Immokalee, I have staffed right now with 4 full-time people, and I'm hoping to bring on 1 part-time person. Because it's hard coverage. Somebody's out on vacation or somebody's out sick. It's hard to be down to 2 or 3 people out in Immokalee and get somebody out there right away.
Sylvia's there all the time, so.
Sylvia's there all the time. You're right. What we wanted to show too with the data is the minimal impact to service. The maximum impact to all the other locations is less than 5%. East Naples and Vanderbilt, of course, would be affected a little bit more, but we think we can recover those impacts to library visits and circulation by the regional libraries are real close. So what I wrote down was Vanderbilt is 3.9 miles to headquarters. It's 7.9 miles to Naples Regional. And East Naples is 5.4 miles away from South Regional and 5.1 miles away from Naples Regional. And as always, I'd like you to consider, we always and have always offered people who can't come to the library, we have Mail-a-Book. Mail-a-Book offers, through direct mailing, through the Friends of the Libraries, and they contribute over $10,000 a year to allow us to mail books to people who have not come into the library. So I'd like you to keep that under consideration that, if we do have a patron at East Naples or Vanderbilt who says, I can't drive to a regional library, I can mail them a book. And we kind of have a concierge service. They call up and they phone and they say, this is what I like to read, and we send them out books once or twice a week or maybe once every 2 weeks. We have 1.2 million titles available on our digital services. So reducing service hours will not impact patron access to the library's digital collection. We have 3 different platforms available. We see digital collections increasing everywhere, and Collier County is no different. Every year we see an increase to our digital use. We also get a bigger bang for the buck on the digital. We have almost 5.6 checkouts at the rate purchased on digital titles. Our physical items are a little bit more, 2 to 3 per checkout. Lee County has 2 times as many ebooks per capita. Manatee has 7 times as many ebooks per capita, and Sarasota 10 times as many ebooks per capita as Collier County. Library partnerships. These are some of our great partners. And we've participated in events with these partners over the last year in 44 different outreach events with over 50,000 attendees. I just have 3 more points to finish up. We'll continue to use data and analytics to guide us in responsible allocation of resources and spending. We recommend the decrease in service hours, which are 17%, 80 hours a week, for a minimal impact to services, and will return to the board this fall to course correct based on patrons' comments and concerns. And at this time, I really would like to publicly thank our dedicated library staff, our library advisory board, Friends of the Library, and our public services department and staff and administrators who've supported our patrons and the library and helped us exceed expectations. That's all I have. Any questions?
Commissioner LaCastro.
Ma'am, can you go back to the slide that showed all the libraries, what districts they were in, and how the hours would change? It's a little bit further. It wasn't the FTE thing; it was the hours.
Right here.
Yeah, that one.
This shows the current hours, proposed hours, and the change.
Here's a couple of just observations, not totally directive, but maybe to just take a look at something. I can only speak for my district because I think I know the load, although you gave a good reminder, when people think the libraries are packed and 8 people walk through the door in 3 hours, that's not great. But what I didn't like on this slide from my district is I didn't like that the East Naples Library, which is one of the biggest one in my district, is now closed on Saturday. And I think Saturday, unless you show me some stats showing that is not a busy day, I think it's, it doesn't, I'm not saying there's 1,000 people there, but that jumped out at me as the biggest change. The 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., you already proved to me that that's where the spike is, but closing fully on Saturday, don't love it. Especially when Marco Island and South Regional will still have Saturday hours. I just know the clientele around East Naples. They get a lot of walking. The Arlington's right across the street. There's a lot of people that live in Lely that use East Naples. So knowing that, they'd have no option on Saturday was just, one observation. The second thing, and I mentioned this when I met with Ms. Patterson yesterday and we were talking about libraries. I wasn't a commissioner then, but during the height of COVID when I was campaigning and you all went to the drive-through only option, I can't tell you how many citizens said to me how awesome that was and said, wow, I really hope when COVID's all over that the library has some sort of, unique keeps a unique program like that, because I really just want to drop off the book and not get out of the car, or I want to call ahead and get a certain book and have somebody run it out to my car, or however you were doing it. It was very popular, at least in my district, with people who could drive but maybe were a little less ambulatory, or just wanted to get the book very quickly and not make a federal a 2-hour visit with it.
We still have people who do that.
Yeah,
They'll call us up and say, I don't want to get out of my car. I can't get out of my car. And we take their holds. They usually request a hold, and we'll take them out to the car.
So I'm just throwing this out there. If you're going to close my East Naples Library on Saturday, could it still have one person there from a short amount of hours to only offer drive-through or something so that the door isn't locked, there's no way to get in there? It just seemed like that was a big leap, and I think Saturday is not an unbusy day. It may not be 1,000 customers, but I just throw that out there. And
No, and we could switch it. Right now, I had it switched Monday through Friday, just to support more staff on Saturday, because what I'd like to do, Commissioner Castro, is Saturday is so popular for kids that I really need to have a lot of staff available on Saturdays at my regional libraries, because this Saturday, I probably had 60 children and their parents every single hour in our headquarters
but in
library.
East Naples, you don't see that.
We do not. Yeah, we do not see that. But I could also open Tuesday and keep Tuesday through Saturday hours at East Naples.
You would
10
know
to
more
2.
than me as far as like the clientele. I'm not here trying to jimmy this whole slide with the minimal information that I have, but I don't have zero information, and just seeing it totally closed on a weekend, on a Saturday, especially when it was open from 9 to 5 on Saturday, and now it's 0 hours. So maybe I'll just let that simmer. And the last thing I would say is, regardless of what gets decided here or how this might tweak, please aggressively advertise when this is advertised, and of course there'll be a huge uproar among the handful, the medium-sized group of people that go to the libraries 7 days a week. But you mentioned some great programs, the online, you do the drive-through. If all that stuff isn't advertised together, it just looks like all we did was close the libraries and reduce the hours, and we didn't remind people that there's programs that maybe they've never used because they've had all the hours at their disposal to visit, but now, to re-advertise these folks, a program that you maybe have never used could still get you the book via online, mailing, drive-through, that sort of thing. So
Absolutely. My marketing and communications group, we've already bullet pointed 20 different points of what to market and advertise, in extended services, because as Commissioner McDaniel says, it's like it's easy to point out what hasn't gone right, but look at all the wonderful and great things we've done and will continue to do.
But for my district,
Yeah.
take a look at East Naples, and if you
Okay.
think there's a day of the week, like you said, if the trade-off is, Tuesday's usually the slowest day, we're going to stay open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Tuesday and see 4 customers, but we're going to close all day Saturday, and we would have maybe seen more. There's still a lot of families and children that live in that part of East Naples. It's not all retirement communities, so that's the only thing that just jumped out at me from my district.
Agreed. I could look at the days and we could say we agree to open 5 days a week, and we'll look at the data and see what is the least visited day.
Commissioner, I just want to make sure that the libraries we're talking about, so there's South Regional, which I believe is the one you're talking about over by the Arlington and the EOC.
Right.
That's the big library with all the big, that's not the one we're proposing to close.
It's the one.
East Naples Library is
Is that tiny one?
the tiny
That's-
library out on the by St. Andrews.
Yeah.
So just
I
make,
still hate that it's closed on Saturday.
understood, but I just want to make sure that people don't misunderstand. We're not proposing to close South Regional. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I got you.
Commissioner McDaniel?
Yes, I got 2 questions and a comment. My first question is, your last slide, you talked about a -8 FTEs based upon your analysis with the cutting of the hours and so on and so forth. And that's in conjunction with consultation with Resource X, which is good. Thank you.
Yes.
My question is, at the beginning, the first slide, I saw positions by each one of these services that the library offers there was 50 or 60 positions that aren't filled.
You're absolutely right. We have 24 positions, and I had a resignation yesterday and another one this morning while I was sitting here. It's just in the current economic climate, when I'm hiring positions that have an entry level of $17.57. The last external positions I filled were last summer, and out of the 6 positions I filled, I only have 2 of those employees still. I just hired on 1.5 FTEs, and one girl who's worked here for 3 weeks has given me a resignation today.
So this -8 is not really going to be a reduction because you're already shy 20.
I'm already shy 25 positions, but we would not have to rehire 8 of those.
Gotcha. In the event that we were going to make an effort to hire
Yes.
those.
Yes,
then-
yes,
Then you would not have to reach out to fill 8 per this
Correct.
analysis.
correct, if we continue that reduction of hours.
Now, my next statement is, and this is just a thought to bring up and have a discussion. It's difficult for me with this limited amount of information to see, you talk about hours of operation, but there's not, I didn't see people counts here. You mentioned at one of the slides that there were 8 people coming through between 9 and 11 in the morning, or something along those lines. But this is your staffing thing.
Oh,
This
that's my
isn't one of-
staffing. Okay, so this is a distribution.
But
Yeah,
see, and stop for a second, if you would, and forgive me, because Terry gets mad when I talk, when you talk. She gets mad all the time. This slide doesn't tell me anything, other than there's a percentage change between these hours. But a percentage of what? How many, is this? And so one of my suggestions here today is that before we make any decisions without enough information, enough data for us to be able to assist with the decision, that we actually see people counts here. as opposed to percentages of patron visits.
Yes, so I do have that data, and what that data looks like is the neighborhood library, same as this. This is our daily distribution. So our software allows us to take out an hourly rate, and this is what it shows you. So we're taking this hourly rate, and we're open Monday through Saturday, and this gives you the distribution of people who walk through the door.
I understand, Catherine.
Do you want the raw data?
We want numbers and not percentages.
Okay,
Doesn't mean
all right.
I mean, you should, and forgive me, I'm not your enemy here by
No,
any
no.
stretch. It's just, this computes really well for you, but this doesn't compute for me at all. This percentage of patronage doesn't mean anything to me. You've got a counter at every one of your doors where
Yep.
people come and go. But I don't know this percentage that you're talking about here, what this correlates to with population of Collier County residents that use any one of our libraries. And so I'd like to suggest that we, if it's not an emergency to make this decision today, that we continue this item until our next board meeting and have a brief report, not that this isn't already, but with data that computes so that I can see as to where the suggested changes are and what the impacts for the community and the patronage that we're actually having is done.
Okay. Yeah, and I have those door counts in front of me. I just don't have a slide. But we approximately have about 850,000 people walk through the library a day. East Naples is about 3% total of those numbers. So let me give you an idea to date.
And we don't have to belabor that right now.
You don't want to-
because we have
okay.
that data, but we don't have that data, and you lost me when you were showing this, because and when I say you lost me, you didn't lose me.
You want those fine numbers. You
Yes,
want that
but,
fine tune.
because
Okay,
you have more information there that makes this make a whole bunch of
I've
sense.
got it. I've got it.
See, I don't have
present it,
that.
okay.
And so in order for me personally to make a legible decision with regard to the impacts of the hours of operation, closure of the East Naples branch, so on and so forth, I have to see, I would like to see the patronage, number-wise, not a percentage of daily visits or anything.
Okay, perfect.
And in addition to the actual numbers of people that walk in each location, I would like to know the cost.
Oh, I have that for you too.
And, yeah, but we don't have it in front of us.
Per
Okay.
library.
So, yes,
All right.
per library, so that I can,
That's good. Now I know yes.
right, that way, when we have that kind of data, we can determine whether it's smart to reduce hours or whether we ought to consider, seriously consider doing something else. So if you
All
could
right.
get that information to us.
Yes, and I do have that. Okay.
And you did good.
Yes, by the way, I mean, I hope you didn't take offense to what I was doing.
Commissioner McDaniel, no.
Okay, good.
Not
Well,
at all.
sometimes I come across as being aggressive, and I didn't mean to. This
No.
data wasn't sufficient for me to be able to,
Problem. It's a
Actually
start to
pull
the
through.
presentation. Now I know what I need to come back with, and I do have all the data, so it's just presenting it.
outstanding.
It
I'll make a
won't take me
motion to
long.
continue till the next meeting.
Commissioner LeCastro.
Yeah, what I would add is this is a next meeting presentation, not in 2 months. But I would also like to see the marketing piece. Like you said, we have marketing folks. This isn't building the Empire State Building here. The county is always guilty of making some sort of change like this to our marinas or our parks, and then we all get 100 emails from people going, "Oh my God, I went to the park and this was closed," and then the answer is, "Oh, well, we put it on our website." And, my impression was we were going to blast it out a little bit more. And all of us have newsletters that go to our constituents. I'd love that in 2 weeks when we hear from you, to be able to not only digest all of this and put it in my newsletter and the reasons why, so it doesn't sound like 5 angry commissioners just closed a bunch of libraries, but it has the reasons why and the metrics. But then it also has the other programs that maybe the average library visitor has never used before, but we could help advertise those, as you should also be doing, in ways more than just, I would expect to walk into one of our libraries after all this is settled and see a big giant poster board on an easel that says changes to hours and reminders of programs. I mean, we really have to blast out the marketing so it doesn't look like we just slashed and dashed. This is the same thing that we got thrown under the bus for improperly about Conservation Collier, when people just heard what they wanted to hear and didn't absorb the whole program. And we don't want to screw this one up. Yeah, we're going to make some changes. It's off season, and there's some population numbers that don't support the library just being open to be open. But then I really think the missing piece here is you have a lot of really cool programs that probably not a lot of people use because they don't need to, but to advertise now that they have those at their disposal and can still get, the books that they want and the services they want just through a means that they maybe weren't familiar with.
Yeah, I agree. When you tell people why you do something or why you made the decision, they go, okay, that's reasonable. I mean, none of us are being unreasonable, and we don't want to be. We want to provide exceptional services. I agree.
And by continuing this, it's coming to light. People that are going to be impacted by it are going to be communicating with us, and we'll be able to add that into the mix
Absolutely.
when we come back in
Absolutely.
a couple of weeks.
We actually have someone wanting to chirp in.
We have one registered speaker for this item, Dr. Dmitry Shatov.
Dimitri.
Good afternoon, distinguished commissioners and county fellows. Dmitry Shutov. I'm CEO, president, non-for-profit Tech for Life. Thank you very much for opportunity to address the meeting today. And it's a little bit uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable talking after you already discussed very many items on this agenda. But I try my best. Okay. The library director, Ms. Kauser, note is very important and very, very informative. On one hand, and also it outlines some problems, the note. On the one hand, the library services, as it stated, face pressure to quantity and quality due to staffing shortage. On another hand, the note calls for further reduction of services hours and even possible closure of the branch. The branch closing, written on the note, relates to some kind of duplication, not quite logical to me. Why closing the branch when we can just address the problem of duplicating? The note also points out that Sarasota libraries have better statistics. In February, we visited Sarasota Gulf Gate Library, one of the best in the country, an exemplary library that shows how the library can be transformed itself from a just book depository into the center of exchange of information on a very wide range spectrum. They run remarkable high voltage programs like Socrates Ideas Club, Entrepreneurs Club, film and cinematography show with a real film showing every week, and then even Jazz Club. 2 programs are running annual. It's advisory group for kids, parents, and adults English group too. Today, I'm very glad to say that our nonprofit Tech for Life and Collier County Library close to concluding our understanding, memorandum of understanding for cost sharing, for space sharing in Naples Regional Library. Our project will be aiming publishing and digitizing a book written and illustrated by children, students, and adults. This is kind of an innovative program. Already we have many followers. Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez, councilors, commissioners, and Ms. Kauser for flexibility and thoughtful guidance. Thank you.
And Dimitri, did you hear, we're not making a decision today. We're gonna have this come back in 2 weeks. You don't have to. You can just share your thoughts.
So we have a motion to postpone. Do we have a second?
Not yet.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye. Aye. So moved.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 11F. This is a recommendation to accept the report card and update on Parks and Recreation aquatic facilities and projects. Mr. John McCormick, your Director of Facilities Management, is here to present.
Thank you, Ms. Patterson. Chair and Board, good afternoon. For the record, John McCormick, Facilities Director. Real quick, a little background on myself. I'm still fairly new. I'm a professional engineer in Florida and Ohio, mechanical engineer by trade, a master's degree from Ohio State. I've been in this business of facility management, construction, consulting engineering for 35 years, and very similar to my position now here at the county. I've been with the county 8 years. I started at GMD for 3, moved to facilities for the last 5, and the 2 of which have been as your director. I appreciate the opportunity to present this grade card and update the Capital Aquatics program. But it's not going to be a good news story. We've got some problems that we are focused on fixing. And I've been getting a lot of questions myself, as I'm sure you have as well. But I hope this presentation will answer some of them. Real quick summary, Parks and Rec aquatic facilities, of course, we've got 6 major ones. The oldest, back in the 1980s, Sun and Fun was completed in 2006. Eagle Lakes, 2018. And the newest one is the Big Corkscrew, that was just completed last year. Our report card generally is Big Corkscrew has an A, it goes to B, C, 2 C's, a D, and an F. And of course, F is the Sun and Fun, which is our major problem. Wading pool is still functional, but we have to discuss about that. We have made renovations and improvements, but the aged aquatic facilities, particularly at Sun and Fun, require significant additional attention. We feel this is due to a short-term focus rather than more comprehensive and inadequate attention and resources dedicated to a preventative maintenance program and a lack of strategic long-term capital renewal. To bring this in greater focus, County Manager elevated Parks Aquatics to a strategic priority project during this year's strategic plan update. In addition, Facilities Management was asked to take over the renewal and replacement program from Parks. This change does provide for a dedicated project manager, shared project management resources, along with a program level oversight, and make sure the aquatics program is prioritized. Quite frankly, that fits in our wheelhouse anyway, so it's really a good fit. In addition to this, we've started a parallel move where staff has initiated a procurement action to explore the option of privatizing the operations of our aquatics. Also, long-term maintenance management of all our facilities. I'll talk on that a little more coming up. Oops, go back. Okay, briefly, here's a map showing the geographic locations of our parks. I've included the vineyards splash pad, not much there, but as you can see. And we've labeled them green, yellow, and red. A and B are green. The C's are Immokalee, Vineyards, and Golden Gate. Golden Gate fluctuates between a D and a C, quite frankly. And unfortunately, Sun and Fun is a solid F. We tried to consolidate this into more of a matrix form as a quick oversight to see the tasks we have ahead of us and where we feel each park is at today. Big Corkscrew, again, all green, of course, it's brand new. Eagle Lake's about the same. They have a water slide, one half of it, but that's going to be repaired by July. The Immokalee pool, some problems, but a waiting pool, again, will be up and running by June, end of this month. Vineyards, operational. Golden Gate, same, except the water slide is down. We've also had some issues there with our geothermal, which we're addressing as we speak. And of course, in Sun and Fun, the only thing truly operational today is the wading pool. Everything else is down, and we've tried our best to get them all up and running. We know it's summer, 95 degrees outside, kids are out of school. We just couldn't get there. We tried to do a lot ourselves through a maintenance, and quite frankly, we pushed the envelope a little bit without pulling permits, doing all we can as under maintenance umbrella rather than going the route, since it's commercial work, getting a consultant and permits and following the procurement process. But that's where we hit the wall, and that's where we're at, why the rest of this is going to have to be November, which obviously is way past our prime swimming time. As you can see, we've got two stragglers there, the water slides and the interactive water features that we're in the middle of engineering design, and we can try to push them for maybe a July, more likely August completion before we can start looking at getting any execution work done through procurement. We took a couple aerials to give you an idea. Good news is we've got a lot of great properties here. Of course, this is the Corkscrew, brand new. And again, grade A. We list, I'll buzz through these because we can come back to them if you have specific questions, but kind of what we're doing there and the current status. Eagle Lakes, same thing there. I mean, it looks great from the air, you know, and this one here is still in pretty good shape. You can see the blue and yellow slides, and the one slide there, yellow, is down right now, but we'll get that repaired. Again, grade B. Immokalee Sports Complex. You see the two pools there. We'll get the wade pool up and running. There's a future project planned there. We've got fenced-in money to replace these pools, to consolidate it into one pool. Probably won't happen until the summer of well, we're going to work around the summer. Get through the summer of 26, we think, and build a new pool. About $3+ million. Vineyard Splash Pad, again, very little maintenance, and it's basically functional. Golden Gate, again, another really nice facility. We've had some issues with the slide. Right now it's shut down. And we've had some on and off issues with the pump house, but with the geothermal units again. That's kind of a constant theme on all of our pools, which we're going to address. But again, I think it's something we can certainly deal with. Sun and Fun Lagoon. I actually like the next picture better. It kind of labels all the specialties throughout and what we're dealing with. You can see the wading pool clear on the southwest corner is still operational. I thought we had labeled Pump House. Yeah, Pump House 1. There we go. Pump House 1 on the lower left. That's really the nerve center for all these pools. All the pumps go there. All the filter pumps are housed there. And basically, that's the issue we have, electrically and mechanically. And then right behind that building are all the geothermal, 24 of them. And quite frankly, they're all hanging on. Most are not operating correctly. We think we have, in addition to mechanical issues, I think we have well issues with them as well. But again, we're going to take time to sift through all that. The slide, as you can see, I know it's been a major headache not having that slide. We've done some preliminary work, temporary work. We've cleaned the inside of the slide itself. We've the sump was leaking, couldn't hold water. We couldn't figure it out, so we fixed that temporarily. So it holds water now. But we have significant issues, and the biggest problem we have is the structural integrity of the platform and the stairway. We have a mechanical engineer look at it, and he's putting together a proposal. We're almost there, but it's probably in the neighborhood of a $800,000 ticket to fix. A lot of the connections are bad, rusted through, and these are structural bolts. You can't go buy these down at Walmart. And quite frankly, it's just not safe. I don't feel like we could just paint over them and continue using it. Guardrails are loose, things like that, but it's,
You can get those structural bolts in Immokalee.
okay, I'll remember that. So anyway, we're really waiting on the engineer's plan. We hope to have that here maybe July or so, but I still need the pumps. You know, we've got pumps, two types of pumps, one to circulate the water and the others to filter it. And they all go back to pump house number one. We've been able to, through maintenance of ourselves, and with the help of our utilities friends, Dr. George, we've rebuilt the pumps in pump house 3. And these are 15-year-old pumps. You know, they're not supposed to last this long. But in order to keep things moving, trying to get this thing up and running, we pulled the impellers and we've rebuilt some VFDs, things like that. But through the process of all this, and we see that throughout all the pools, you know, every designer was a little different. And we've got 12 different sizes of pumps. There's no you know, common, you know, pump size, things like that. So we took some time to really generate a good scope where we tried to consolidate common sizes, bump up all the horsepowers, because we were just meeting minimum flows for the health department with the existing horsepowers we had. We're moving up. These are like 60 horsepower pumps. Off the shelf, they're probably $25,000 each. So we're working on that, trying to get all those replaced. And I think it's, you know, like I said, we got a couple months of engineering, and then it'll be November before we get those things running. We're talking wiring had to be cleaned out. It was all corroded wiring, VFDs. The whole ventilation system in the pump house was not working. And that created a lot of extra corrosion. So we're basically rebuilding the guts of that pump house number one. Again, these are all individual grades for all the components. As you can see, they're all Fs. And let's head to the summary page. The project's currently underway to maximize safety, reliability, and redundancy of current facilities, which includes restoring SNF operations, Sun Fund. We've got pumps, VFDs, electrical, mechanical, geothermal heating and cooling systems. Future major projects are, again, replace those slides, both at Golden Gate and at Sun Fund. Stairs, water features, all primarily Sun Fund. Immokalee Aquatics, a new pool there. Golden Gate Aquatics, we've got the engineering done on a new pump house and a new slide. And we've got money fenced off from the revenue bonds to do that. The Lazy River, an interactive feature. The Lazy River, and we've talked to a couple consultants, they're typically money pits. And we think in November we can get it running again, but not fully. So we have to run it at a lower level because the top coping leaks. And and of course that's all curved, you know, so they're talking in the millions to replace that. The complexity of the Lazy River, they have a series of pumps. Some create like a rapids effect. Some are more just easy floating, and none of them are working right. So that goes into the overall repair of that structure. Again, we've got about $4 million, I think, fenced off for Sun Fund out of the industrial revenue bonds. So what are we going to do different? Some actions, and what we've witnessed is kind of like in our building, our culture has been break-fix. And trying to move that to a preventive maintenance culture is not the easiest. There's a lot of inertia to that. But we've got to get ahead of that, at least on the curve, or hopefully ahead of the curve with preventative maintenance. It's very difficult for me to budget based on this break fix, because I never know what's going to fail. So, because we don't have our hands and eyes and ears on this equipment. So that's huge for us to change that culture. Along with that goes to allocate and prioritize the proper funding to support that. Then I got what I call a three-legged stool. Procurement action, one, the privatization of the operation of the pools in the county, and along with an engineering component, preventive procurement action for maintenance and repair, and also like an architectural for all the pools and related features, all the things that people touch and can see. I need more of an architect for that. I need the engineer for the back of the house stuff. And what we found over the years, for whatever reason, the back of the house was pretty much ignored. People didn't see it, didn't think about it. So that's how we aim to go forward, because I do not want the corkscrew to end up like a sun and fun. And if we don't change something, it's going to. I've got a good team on this, and they've been putting a lot of hours into this. And I think we've got a good plan. But there's the realities of both permitting and procurement, the things that we're locked into. You know, we're no different than any other contractor. We got to pull permits. And there are safety issues to be concerned with. You know, that's paramount for me. You know, I look at the critical path being, there's 4 items I really push: the structural issues, the pumps, the electric, and the geothermal. The geothermal is taking a bad rap, but quite frankly, we have not properly maintained them. They're basically air conditioners. They're heat pumps. They can both heat and cool the water, but they use a well for condenser water rather than like a cooling tower like I had over here at the chiller plant. All of those need maintenance. The wells can plug, but nowhere in there did they ever do what we call an N+1, where you can take one of them down without affecting the operation of the pool to do proper maintenance. That could be a well. It could be one of the geothermal units. So one of the things we talked about with our consultant, to drill extra wells. We can do a lead lag on a well, use this one so many days, this one so many days. So you have a backup. If one well collapses, we lost a pump down the bottom of a well just the other day. Because nobody's looked at this stuff. And but the good news is it's fixable. And this isn't rocket science. You guys know that. I mean, it's kind of common sense things that you do at your house. And that's the culture we want to bring. And we've got the commitment. And you know, when I look at this thing, guys, it's embarrassing to me, because I know the public relies on these to be open. And I think it's easily fixed. There's a lot of unforced errors on this thing that we never had to go through. But so anyway, that's the quick rundown. I'm sure you guys have some questions. I'll do my best to answer.
First of all, John, I'm glad that you're at the helm of this thing, and I've got confidence that you can get it done. I do have questions about the stairs at Sun and Fun. Are you talking about tearing the whole thing down and rebuilding it? Or are you just talking about re-welding where we have structural failure?
Yeah, not tearing it down. It's not all that old, and the repairs we did, we can supplement a little bit, but the slide itself is good. We have to do some more in-depth repair of the sump. We've done some temporary there to keep it from leaking. It's a tube structure. It's a lattice work. There's some bolted connections, some welded, and some may need to be reinforced. That's what we're waiting on the engineer to tell us really what's the best way to do this, because he knows we're waiting.
We talking about outsourced engineer or in-house engineer?
Outsource.
Okay. I think you alluded to it because my ears kind of tuned in, but is there any, in the design, is there any methodology to standardize the equipment so that we can move it from one park to the next, and limit our inventory?
Absolutely, amen. That's one of the things we identified early on. You know, I think we had 12 different sizes of pumps, and like I said, it was kind of like, it's kind of a specialized industry. You know, when these consultants come in and design a pool, everybody does it, and they they really don't over-engineer it or give you much play in the operational integrity of the, they want you to call them, you know. So we're standardizing that, and the way we're doing that is we're up in the horsepower, but we're putting a bigger VFD, which is a variable frequency drive, so it can act as if it's a 30 horsepower. But we've got a lot of play in that. So if one pump goes down, we can replace it with another. We can keep somatic stock of the common pump sizes. And so we don't have all those extra spare parts. Same thing with the geothermal. There's a lot of things we can do differently. A lot of times they drill only I don't know much about wells, but I learned a lot over the last few months. They drill usually like a 3-inch diameter. And I said, well, why don't they drill a 6-inch diameter? It's not that much, it's like $60,000 more, but it can feed a lot more of these units, and I could have one as a backup. Those kind of things, because, like we're doing in our chiller plant, you need an N+1. And if I can get some of these procurement actions to take hold, depending on how much they cost, where they can do every 6 months, these are essentially air conditioners. I know at my residence, I get my air conditioner serviced twice a year. We ought to do the same for these. But we haven't. Same thing with the pumps, the pump, the seals. When I first walked in there, we had pumps literally vibrating almost off the base. But it was running, it was pumping, only about a third of what it was supposed to, but it was running. So yeah, I think that's a key component to this.
Good. So I love the fact that you recognize that we've had a break and fix culture, and that we're going to move to a create and keep culture. And in that, it's simple to me in my little pea-brain business mind. We have a capital replacement plan, and we have a preventative maintenance plan. And we plan our work, and we work our plan, and we live happily ever after. Obviously, that hadn't been done. We're at there now. That's where we're at.
Right.
Permits. Let me know if you have any problem getting your permits. Let me know firsthand.
I will. The truth is, they've been, I came from there. I'm a code official, and I know how Jamie runs it, and he's been very cooperative.
Now, on the geothermal, is that the best option, or is it just the best option for the money?
I'm not sure it's the best option per se. I know it's kind of a standard in Florida because of the high water table and things like that. It's fairly inexpensive to operate. It's less energy. It's more environmentally friendly. And the good thing about geothermal, if you use the groundwater, you can stack these units close. The minute you start air cooled, you need like 5-foot clearance to the next unit.
Sure.
So if you go back, especially at Sun and Fun, you can see they're racked and they're one after the other. And that does give you that flexibility. But you do have the loose end and the complexity of the well, which I'm not a big fan of.
What's your best guess, and I'm not going to hold your feet to the fire on this, but just a big swag for all of the parks, money-wise, to get it back, create it like you want it, so that we can keep it running?
From the capital outlay, I'm going to use up all those those revenue bonds, and I'm going to need about an additional $10 million.
Okay. So I was going to bring this up in commissioner comments, but I'm going to go ahead and bring it up now. I understand that there is a process that we have to go through to use TDT funds to make repairs to Sun and Fun. We have to find that it promotes tourism. And County Attorney, if you could, is that correct? Is that what we have to do, or?
Yes, there's a process where a capital report gets prepared, and an analysis, how does it affect TDC? And it's a statutory requirement.
What do we have to do to implement that, to get that rolling quickly?
Direct staff to go to the TDC on it.
Do I need a head nod from everybody?
You need to call on us to talk before you go doing that rabbit hole.
I was spitballing.
Yeah, we'll cut it out.
All right, Commissioner LaCastro.
I don't want to go back into ancient history, but one of the things I always say is when the history is poor, you've got to look at it so you don't repeat it. I guess the question I would have from you, and this is with all due respect, know you have a deep resume and you're here representing a team of people that aren't all brand new. Some have been around. All these things that are an F, when they were a C, why wasn't anybody standing at this podium talking to these 5 commissioners? You know, when it was a B minus, slide into a C minus. Where were all the briefings and the slides and the scorecards and, you know, all the stuff about geothermal pumps and money that we needed? You know, we were moving money around, throwing it at the sports complex, giving it away to other people, and, you know, going from, you know, I'll use my Air Force term, we just went from Mach 10 when everything was an A to now a dead stop, and everybody, now we need $10 million. And so, I mean, I know that whatever answer you give me doesn't help us today, but we need to hear that answer so that never happens again.
No,
And we've
no.
been saying this to a lot of departments. Before you get to an F, somebody come up here to the podium and tell us that we're on a slippery slope, not everything is broken. And then, you know, hearing that the pools are going to be great in November, you know,
Thanks.
that's you know, need I say more? But what did happen? You know, this is honest conversation here. Why weren't, you know, we having this conversation when everything was a C minus?
Yeah, I really can't answer that directly. All I know is that we in facilities, we're blessed. We've got some really good people with some deep resumes, PEs, construction people, that we just know that when we see it walking by. And honestly, I don't think Parks had the resources and the technical ability to recognize the issue. They just knew the pump was running, so they figured it was okay, kind of thing. It's much easier, and literally, you know, I call it putting lipstick on a pig. You know, they can see the rusty handle or whatever, and they'll paint that. But, you know, when I see that, you know, it's like being in a restaurant, they give me a dirty water glass. First thing I think of, what's the kitchen look like? You know, and that's what
But this
I
is the
would do.
room where you get the resources. So, you know, and I know you know that. So I'll end it there. I think Commissioner McDaniel's got a little bit of a media question with a little more
The county
meat on it.
manager wants to address you. She's over there waving at you.
So,
Talk to
Commissioner,
me, Amy.
John put it nicely, but this current responsibility now has been transferred back to facilities where they do have the depth of bench to be able to understand the complicated portions of this. I think what John was saying is correct, is that when you saw folks in front of you before, which is how money was allocated, so we have to remember that, is that we aren't saying we are standing here, we have everything broken and no money. What happened is there were needs identified, but they were the apparent needs. Things were superficially didn't look good, or we had leaks and cracks in the pools, which, again, you hear me say a lot about stormwaters. We don't drive around every day going, look how beautiful that stormwater infrastructure is, because you don't see it. And so what John is explaining is that the emphasis was placed on the wrong thing. Rather than thinking about how we were going to run these pools, we spent time thinking about how to make them look really nice for the public, and we had gotten into the habit of band-aiding things and just making it work good enough to get us open for the summer and have the pools look really nice. And that is not how this can happen again. And John stated that. We have a brand-new facility at Big Corkscrew Island. We cannot take the same approach with that pool that we've taken with this one and some of the other ones. We have to pay attention to those very temperamental and expensive components that keep the pool running, because it looking beautiful and nobody being able to swim in it is not, and that is not the answer for the public. But John has just reassumed responsibility for this, so for him to be able to answer why the focus was on it looking good versus it actually working is not a question that he can answer. But I can tell you that in a lot of areas, we have fallen victim to that. Is it looks really nice on the surface and not digging too far into it. And we're really trying to shift away from that type of behavior.
And on that note, I'm really happy you're here as well. By the way, Commissioner Hall said it. You have the depth and the knowledge and the capacity to distinguish between pretty and glitty and necessity at the same time. So your leadership in regard to us moving forward with this new culture of quality is going to be imperative. And I would like to see an action plan out of you and and almost do it in a counterintuitive way. I mean, the best pool we have is Big Corkscrew, and that is because it's the newest.
Right.
Works great.
So put your action plan in place to keep that one humming, and then work your way backwards
Right.
to Sun and Fun.
That's our plan.
Number one.
Yep.
Number two, if you all will recall, commissioners, I brought up in January that we needed to have a look at privatization of our aquatic centers. And so I would like to today make, before we, at the same time, Commissioner Hall, that we're exploring the expenditure of the TDT funds. I think our new executive director of the tourist development, the TDC, Jay. I mean, he's got it going on. He understands what our board's actually looking for. I would like to explore the availability expenditure of those funds for the upkeep, maintenance, and such of all of our parks facilities. While we're exploring how to do that, I'd like to go out for an ITN on Sun and Fun to privatize that facility. I'd like to put it out to the community, to the business community, to see, because what I'm hearing, Commissioner LaCastro asked what I thought was an extremely valid question. How do we get here? Well, we got here because we're not geared for this. We're not geared for these operations. Now, we're better geared with you looking at things as far as maintenance and upkeep and how do we do what we do better. But how do we reach sustainability at long-term economic sustainability going forward? So I suggested this quite some time ago. I think it's part of the impetus as to why we're here. But I'd like to suggest that we go out for an intent to negotiate to privatize Sun and Fun, use it as our pilot program, and see what kind of responses we get back from the community, what type of opportunities that we in fact have. Because until we actually enter into an agreement, it's still our baby. We still have to care for it. We still have to maintain it. We still have to meet these proposed deadlines and so on. We can still do what Commissioner Hall requested with regard to the TDT tax to be able to assist with those repairs and maintenance. But I would really like us to, and then I would really like us to move away from that type of an operation and privatize that one first. And so and my third point, when I was looking at your fix, repair, and replace issues on a pool basis, on an aquatic center basis, the number one thing that kept popping up was the slides. The slides were the number one thing. And so maybe from a business decision standpoint, we move away from slides at all. Just stop using them. Take them out of service. When they go out of service, when they become in such ill repair, take them out. I mean, that, rather than going and fixing it because somebody decided it was a good thing to have a slide there at some stage in the past, rather than going ahead and spending the money and fixing it, repairing it, and keeping it up, take it out.
Sure.
And then my last question is to the county manager or deputy county manager. In our AUIR process or CIE, capital improvement element process, do we have a delineation of how many pools per capita or distance or population or anything along those lines? Have we, and then the second question is, have we ever compared ourselves to other municipalities with how many pools other counties have in relationship to their population? Have we ever done that analysis?
Not that I'm aware of. It may have been done as part of the last Parks Master Plan, but the level of service for the AUIR and the CIE is driven by acreage. It is not a facility-driven level of service. We do inventory everything that we have, and to your point, from time to time, especially in the past, as trends in recreation changed, we would look at things like tennis courts, racquetball courts, pickleball courts, whether or not pools have been looked at. Again, maybe a while ago, but we could certainly do that with, we have a kind of a group of counties that we compare ourselves to. We could easily look at those population municipalities, because that does come into play, and then the number of aquatics facilities that they have.
Because to me, there again, it's a nice thing for a community to have a public swimming pool. But an actual aquatic center with wading pools and slides and all of the other niceties that we have been putting into our facilities over the years, I think it's a bit extraordinary. I was thinking about, when I was a kid, there was a swimming pool in the whole county.
With a high dive.
With high dive, yeah, and a low dive. And so,
Easy to fix.
yeah, and not a lot of not a lot.
You can get the bolts anywhere.
Now, we only ran them in the summertime, of course, but where I'm going with this thought process is, if maybe as we're going through this analysis with care, upkeep, maintenance, whether or not how we're paying for this care, upkeep, and maintenance, we're also applying some comparisons to what we're doing in relationship to other municipalities, and how other municipalities are arriving at the decision of an aquatic center or not. Maybe at some stage, just as we're having discussions about all of our other assets, maybe at some stage we don't need as many. And so my thoughts are, for now, Sun and Fun's an asset. We've got it there. Enormous amount of expense coming up. So I'd like for us we have to continue on the path you're on, but I'd like for us to move into intent to negotiate process just to see if there's enough interest in the community or from the business community to line that out.
Understood.
And can I just add one thing? I agree with Commissioner McDaniel, and less complicated, water features. I mean, sitting there and spending millions on something that is sucking chest wound doesn't mean we can't have a water slide, but maybe it's not something of the capability of what you'd find at like Disney World. We're not Disney. And so at some point swapping it out for a different feature that is easy to maintain and doesn't have so much infrastructure.
Good point.
I mean, I personally scream like a girl when I get on the top of that slide.
You heard, yeah.
Mr. Saunders.
Thank you. Don't take this as a criticism, because it is definitely not. I don't know if we have the expertise on our staff to evaluate what we would need in an aquatic center. I mean, we can certainly look at other communities, but and how we maintain these and what kind of schedules we have, because you're great at our staff is great at building roads and water and sewer plants and things that we do day in and day out, but aquatic centers, obviously we're lacking there, and I think there's probably a certain expertise needed to really understand how to fix these. We're talking about doing an ITN. Then we're going to be looking at staff to figure out what the heck to put into the ITN, and then they have to evaluate it. And I think I would make this similar to the radio system. We're looking at doing an entire new radio system, a $60 million system. And as we were discussing that, we all agreed that we really needed a consultant on our side to look at how we can deal with the issues that we have to deal with. And we did that with Motorola and the Harris system. Before we went out to do a bid, we hired someone to help us determine what we really need. And I think that's kind of what we need to do here.
I would agree.
There are water parks all over Florida. This is something that there's got to be all kinds of consulting firms out there. We're really into the business in a big way here. We're talking, I think we're probably talking $15–20 million by the time we fix everything that needs to be fixed, if not more. And I'd like to make sure that we do it right, even if that means we have to spend a little bit of money making sure that we have the right consultants. So I'm just throwing that out there. Mr. McCormick, I don't know.
No, that's a great idea because again, it's a specialty, and you're right. No one here is really formally trained in pools and really how to run them and what's anticipated. So I would really welcome that because, quite frankly, yeah, this has been transferred to facilities, but we'll fail too because we've got another mountain of projects that we're doing as well, and
You're busy.
we're busy, and
Just gotta-
and we don't have that expert. It's not like we're building another building. I got that. These are pools, and like you said, that's a specialty that
You can't
don't have.
YouTube it?
We have $2 billion in assets he's keeping up.
And we have, one of the things that we've all emphasized is the importance of our park system and how that's really one of the services that people really rely on. And when something goes wrong in a park, we hear about it. And so I just want to make sure we do this right. So I'm just throwing that out there, Mr. Chairman. I think it would be a wise decision for us to ask staff to come back in a couple of weeks with some ideas on how we can hire the right consulting firm to guide us through developing the ITN, evaluating what we have. I think that would be money well spent.
Can I make I don't, you want us to light up, or?
No, go ahead.
My thought is engaging a consultant to help us with the best first maintenance plan, upkeep plan, operation plan for what we have. I don't see the need yet to go out for a consultant because he pretty much knows what it's going to take to make Sun and Fun go. He's already got a schedule of what needs to be done. But the engagement of a consultant for the asset that for today, we know we're going to keep, which is Big Corkscrew Regional, and not be in this position when Big Corkscrew Regional's 20 years old. That I totally agree with, but I don't know. I don't feel like we need a consultant to go out for an intent to negotiate for X amount of property for the asset of Sun and Fun to engage the community, the business community, to offer up suggestions on how we can manage that asset. I don't think we need a consultant for that.
Are you talking about the ITN just for the operation, just take the operations of
Yes.
the aquatics off of the county?
How many acres does that encompass? Plus minus 10?
At least.
So
About 10.
they would still be our asset.
We still own, yes, we're not going to sell it. It would be our asset, and then someone else would come in and lease it from us. And then we could ensure that, we could ensure that within that lease revenue, there was a capital asset replacement and maintenance fund, whether they carried it and took care of those things in order to maintain their business, or we appropriated out of the rent structure to facilitate that. But I'm all about the consultant thing as far as the pools and aquatic centers that we have that are operable.
Commissioners, that's something that we can do. We'll look at our existing catalog of contracts and see if there are any that have the expertise we're seeking, and if not, then we'll take the next step to find the proper consultant.
I'm okay with that.
And do it pronto-like.
Yeah, like yesterday.
Pronto
do.
like?
That means quick.
Yeah.
So do we need to make a motion, or you got direction you need to go with, or what?
We just need a motion to accept the report if you're so willing, and then we have the direction from you all on the things next steps that you want to see.
Gotcha.
So I'll make a motion to accept the report, but I want you to explain to me again what you're going to do in terms of some expertise. I
I'll second
know
his
that I fully
motion.
understood it.
Oh, of course. So, that the county has a number of catalog contracts, continuing services contracts with engineering firms. So we need to look at those to see if any of those firms have expertise in aquatic facilities which they may very well. That would be one way we could look at this procurement action. The other way would be that we would have to go out for some type of solicitation. So we'll look at that first. I would anticipate, with the size of the engineering firms that we have on contract, that type of peer review services and helping us develop a maintenance plan is something that's in the wheelhouse of one of our big consulting firms. And we can do that pretty quickly. And we can report back to you at the next meeting.
I agree. I agree.
Good. Motion and second with staff direction. All in favor say aye. Aye.
And do you need a motion on the ITN for Sun and Fun?
I don't think so, sir.
Okay.
That's within staff purview.
So just so I understand, with the ITN for Sun and Fun, what are you going to ask for?
We're asking for operations and maintenance and technical assistance on long-term maintenance.
Right. Right now, the issue at Sun and Fun isn't maintenance. It's replacement of what's out there. And that's a whole lot different than trying to get an expert to tell us how to fix what's there, because that's not what we're going to wind up doing. We're going to replace everything that's there. And I want to make sure that we get the best stuff that we can get at the best price we can get it for the need that we have. And so I'm not sure that this ITN for maintenance is going to get us where you want to be. But that's with the will of the board, that's fine. But I don't think it does what we want to do.
If I may, sir, what I heard the county manager say is that we were going to seek a aquatics maintenance specialist to aid us in developing our action plan and coordinating our action plan. That's what I heard.
The ITN would travel a parallel path, because some of you have been asking about the potential privatization or partial privatization of these facilities. That's something that we're going to need to work through. Now, part of that, once everything's up and running, may very well be that company has the depth to be able to do some of that maintenance, or maybe they don't. We don't know. I know that many of you, as have I, been getting emails from various consultants that run water parks saying, hey, we hear you got some problems, we can help you. Expect that those people would probably be providing us their ideas about an ITN in the future. But these are two distinct actions that you're asking us to take. Absolutely, we're going to get a consultant with expertise to help us right now and for making decisions in the future. And then the ITN idea of maybe this isn't our wheelhouse and we need to have help once everything's up and running.
My note that I didn't say, but Commissioner Saunders did, without any offense, is we're not geared for these type of operations. It's not our expertise, and we've proven that. So that's why I suggested the privatization aspect, Commissioner Saunders, of the ITN. Just to share with you, one of the propositions that came out of the breeze a couple of months ago when I was talking about this was someone said to me, well, if I can enter into a longer term lease, I can make a capital investment into that asset, get it up, get it running, and make it profitable. But I need to know that I've got longevity for a rate of return on my capital investment, where the county, doesn't have to expend those funds. Now, if we don't get something that comes back that's palatable in that regard, then we got to go down the avenue of actually doing the replacement and fixing ourselves. So that there are two separate requests, the ITN for privatization on Sun and Fun, and then the consultation to help us be better geared to operate our aquatics facilities.
Yes, sir.
Good. All right, it's 3:30. Let's take a court reporter break, and let's come back at 3:40.
Thank you.
You're pushing.
Chair, you have a live mic.
All right, does that bring us to 16B15?
Yes, 16B15, formerly 16B15, now 11G. This is a recommendation to authorize the county manager designee to provide $5,333.33 to the Trust for Public Lands for preparation of a grant application for the acquisition of the Seminole Gulf Rail Line and to pledge up to $241,611 towards the local match for the grant. This item is moved to the regular agenda by Commissioner Hall's request, and Ms. Trinity Scott, your department head for Transportation Management Services, is here to present/answer questions.
So I brought this forward because we've got 1.5 miles that we're looking at purchasing the railhead from just north of Wiggins Pass up to Alico Road. And I understand that the grant's $2.4 million and our portion's the 241,000, and that's for the grant. That's our match portion for the grant. But my question, and then after that, this is like an $82 million land purchase that our portion is $7.7 million, if that's accurate. I think it is. And my question, and the reason I brought this forward just for the public is, what do we want? What do we want with the railhead? What purpose is buying the railhead going to serve us?
So for the record, Trinity Scott, Transportation Planning, I'm sorry, I'm not Transportation Planning Manager anymore. I demoted myself. Transportation Management Services Department. So this goes back to 2020. The Trust for Public Lands was working very closely with the Village of Estero and the City of Bonita Springs to acquire this portion of the Seminole Gulf Railroad, which would become a portion of a very large passive recreation trail network. It would connect in with our Paradise Coast Trail. That is a 70-plus mile trail within Collier County. And then it certainly connects much further north, north of Lee County into Charlotte, Sarasota, Manatee counties. Ultimately, the acquisition for the corridor would be what is called rail banked, and it would be utilized for multimodal transportation, essentially a recreational trail through the corridor. Rail banking means that in the future, should someone desire to reestablish rail along the corridor, they could do so through going through the Federal Railroad Administration. With that, we would recoup our dollars that we put into it for the acquisition, plus a CPI, an annual CPI as well. That is what the Trust for Public Lands has negotiated within their contract.
Thank you.
No, well, she said what I wanted to hear, and that is the rail banking aspect of it. This acquisition would greatly benefit the enhancement of the trail at all, and then having the capacity to be able to come back someday and potentially utilize it as a rail as well. The two could coexist within the right of way, and that's what I wanted to what I wanted to hear.
If I could, sir, other options are, I think, there are 3 conservation Collier pieces here. This is from the county property appraiser. The starred areas are already acquired Collier County Conservation Collier lands. It's the Railhead Preserve. The railroad goes right between those parcels. It is a disturbed area. There is, if this is acquired, there's a potential of being able to do what in transportation world we call a trailhead, which would be some parking, typically it could be some bathroom facilities, to where people could drive to that facility to take their bike. They would put their bike maybe on their back and then ride it up the trail. That could also be dual purpose use for our conservation Collier as well. So instead of taking some of that really nice, pristine area and dozing it for parking spaces, we could utilize an already disturbed area for that.
So that's what you're talking about, OPM?
OPM, other people's money. We talk about other people's money. what the Trust for Public Lands right now is doing, and this is going to be the first of probably several grant applications that they're going to be pulling together, is to try to go after other state and federal dollars. And when they did present to the Metropolitan Planning Organization in April, and I stole their slides, so Mr. Hadaway, thank you for providing this to me. But they're going to be going after Sun Trail money, which is Florida-specific money, Florida Communities Trust grants. They're going to be going after several federal sources as well, RAISE. They've also been working with some of our delegation members to try to have specific dollars set aside for this. But this is one specific grant. It's the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program that they are going to be putting in for. Lee County will actually be the applicant on it. The grant deadline is June 15th, and it does require a 20% match.
Good. With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks, Trinity.
Thank you.
Commissioners, that brings us to item 15, Staff and Commission General Communications. Item 15A is public comments on general topics not on the current or future agenda by individuals not already heard during previous public comments in this meeting.
We have none registered.
Item 15B is staff project updates, which we do not have any today. And item 15C is Staff and Commission General Communications. I just have one item for you. Troy, can you put the visualizer on? So,
Rain.
rain.
You're not putting up a rain thing, are you?
I am. Just so that I can provide you the low and high expectations. This is as of yesterday and only through Wednesday, the rainfall totals or the potential rainfall totals. So you can see there's quite a spread between the worst case and the best case or reasonable case of lowest, but still it's a lot of rain. Now the good news is it's been very, very dry. And we have a lot of space in the system, but I'm showing you this not because you don't know this, but because for the public out there, the ground is very dry and it's going to take a little time for the water to soak in. So we just need people to be cautious. However, if we continue to get rain through the rest of the week, we may see places where we have some nuisance flooding, particularly in those areas that are also subject to tide. This is a great exercise for us. Road maintenance is already out and about checking things out. So if folks are seeing the system not responding, if water is standing and not starting to retreat after a few hours, or if things just seem weird or different from prior years, we absolutely want you to call our road maintenance division. I'm going to put it up on this visualizer in just a second here.
Can 311 work?
Yes.
Can 311 work?
311 does work, but this is also the direct number for road maintenance, and there's an on-call service at night. So if they're seeing standing water that is not receding or any other cause for concern, how this helps stormwater maintenance, road maintenance, is this prepares us for the incoming rainy season. So we're really working to get the system in its best shape for rainy season. So if we have blockages, if we have things that have happened over the winter, this is a really great test for the system, and we want to get out and respond to that. So for anybody that we have some bullet points, we're putting this out on social media for folks so that they know where to call and what they're looking at, what's normal under this type of rainfall situation and what might be abnormal. And we will have folks responding all throughout the week as we experience this rainfall. And with that, that's all I have. County Attorney.
Nothing, thank you.
Commissioners.
Commissioner McDaniel.
Well, let's go to the top of the list. The burn ban that we were late in getting initiated. When will we make the decision to lift that?
Well, I'd like to see what happens with the rain this week. I'll consult with the fire chiefs, only because some get this very early rain, we jump the gun and think we're fully in rainy season, and then we have 3 weeks of no rain. So let's see how it goes.
Fair enough. And that's a fine response. I think that's an extremely prudent path to travel. Number two, I don't know if you folks experienced it or not, but our IT division decided to do a major update with our computers this Friday. I was looking at my government calendar and it went away. All of my appointments prior and future appointments on the way. I had a minor panic attack. And so my suggestion is if IT's planning on a revision, let's do it on a Wednesday after a board meeting when things are leveler, more level. Number 3, Jamie, and this, we all have been receiving correspondence from a constituent that used to live in Golden Gate Estates. Izieri is his name, I think. And I'd like to have a discussion about this and bring forward a resolution to this circumstance.
Thank you, Commissioner. For the record, I'm Jamie French, again, your Growth Management Community Development Department Head. I have Mr. Tom Ian Marino, your Code Enforcement Director, with me as well. Tom is intimately involved with Mr. Irizarry's case. Bottom line is that this was a long-standing code enforcement case that ran up to about $160,000 in fines that resulted in a lien against Mr. Irizarry's property. Mr. Irizarry did comply eventually over the years to resolve it, and he did make an attempt, or at least he started to have negotiation talks with us regarding the settlement portion of your ordinance that you recently adopted this year. Unfortunately, Mr. Irizarry had an open electrical permit for solar panels on his garage, detached garage. And the reason why it failed was that either Mr. Irizarry or the previous owners of that property converted that garage to living space. So there was electrical work done within the garage where we could not pass the solar panels. Bottom line, Mr. Irizarry simply needed to close out that permit. He could have canceled the permit. I think he owed us $60 in inspection fees. Or in back fees. I know he worked for just about a month with Mr. Andy Marino. He chose not to do it, so when he sold the home, the $160,000 was held by the title company, and they paid the county. Now, the new owners have come in and they have paid the $60. The permit is closed out, but unfortunately, because now we know it has created a code enforcement case for the new owners that they either have to get this illegally converted. It's not enclosed. Imagine it's a garage that was permitted and built that someone has gone back in and now made living space. So I've got FEMA regulations, I've got state law. We have state law that we must work with or work within the boundaries of the Florida Building Code. And so now we have a code enforcement case on a brand new owner. So they did come in, they did pay the $60. Mr. Irizarry, he wants to I think he wants to pay just the 10% of what the property value is, so he's not fully responsible. Unfortunately, we don't have a path, and I believe Mr. Klatzkow, I don't think because the ownership is transferred, Mr. Irizarry no longer can come forward to you and say, I just want to pay the 10%. If he would have just paid the $60, closed out that permit, he wouldn't have been on the hook for the full $160,000 that we collected.
So we can give you a path.
Yes, sir. The board sets policy.
Okay. So my suggestion is you got 2 cases. You got the old case the permit's been closed. You got the new case with not permitted fix for a residential use that cannot continue on. So that new owner will have to take care of that code issue. So my suggestion is that we hold back the 10% and refund the balance back to Irizarry from the previous code case.
So we're going to give him back the 150,000,
140, yeah, plus
Right.
minus, whatever it works out to be.
and then the new owners are buyer beware, they got to take care of their own deal.
The new buyers will have to fix the code case that we're aware of now and bring it back on their own. It's not, that they're not participatory in this lien that was created by the old code case in the first place.
Have the new owners got a way out besides just ripping everything out and redoing it?
They could demo it. They would have to demonstrate that they meet the FEMA floodplain because this is a special flood hazard area. And to avoid us ever being like Lee County, we'd like to maintain the 25% discount for our flood insurance policyholders. But they're going to have to adhere to the Florida Building Code.
You want that in a motion?
If that's the direction of the board, we'll bring back an item at the next meeting.
I'd like to make that a motion.
I'll second it. Oh, Mr. Commissioner Sanders.
Now, the motion is for staff to come back at the next meeting with some resolution of this, or are you resolving it right now? 'Cause
Well, but the resolving of it is now that we, they may have to come back to us in 2 weeks to finalize everything, but we withhold the 10% of the property value, approximately $16,000, and refund the balance.
About $141,000 and $26.
I can say I know absolutely,
$26,000 we would retain.
I can say I know absolutely nothing about this case or this issue.
I know a lot.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if you could share that with us and have us come back and do this, because I feel uncomfortable voting for something I just have no idea what we're doing. I mean,
Okay.
I'm not saying that I don't support what you want to do, I just don't understand it.
Especially that big of a refund, I wanted to.
I'd be happy to, you want to bring it back in 2 weeks and have an actual hearing on that?
We'll bring back an item that based off of your direction here
You can
today.
put it on the consent agenda, just get us some information, and then
Perfect.
if we wanted to pull it off, we can pull it
Perfect.
off.
I had long communications with him in advance of the sale of the home, all the way through the process. There's no argument that, and he even admitted, he was here once and spoke to us, I think maybe even before you got elected, before Commissioner Hall and Commissioner Kowal got elected, he was here, and I've had an enormous amount of information and communication with him over the years. So I'd be happy to do that, put it on the consent agenda.
Give us the
But the
history.
bottom line is we with Commissioner LaCastro's leadership, we implemented the new policy and have been leaning towards this 10% of the property value as a far more equitable path for us to travel in these voluminous code cases that are out there. So plus minus, it's refunding about $141,000 plus a little bit to back to him.
Yes, sir. We'll bring back an item.
All right, sounds good.
And I have one more, and this leans into what I think you might be talking about, so I don't want to, I'll steal your thunder a little bit, and then you and I can
Go ahead,
engage.
because you know more about it than I do.
This is a Sycamore. We recently had, and did you find out, are we within the time frame to recall?
Mr. Bosey he's saying yes.
Okay.
You can appeal it. You're within the time frame to appeal the decision.
At our next meeting?
Well, whenever staff can get it back to you.
Okay. There was a hearing examiner's decision that was rendered on a side yard setback encroachment with the property owner off of Sycamore. And and we just learned this yesterday when Jamie was in my office. Mr. Bosey was talking to him that a property owner off of Sycamore filed for a building permit for a building, on about a 4,000 square foot building on his property. And the site plan that they submitted showed the building being in the appropriate location, meeting all of the side yard and rear yard setbacks. He then engaged a private provider to manage the construction, which was a contractor, and the permitting, or the inspections on the permits. So when that happens, we as a practice don't go to the property. So all of a sudden, he's done, and there's a building that's now been built in the side yard setback and the rear yard setback. And so his only avenue before he could get a CO for that building and utilize it was to acquire a variance. So he went to the contiguous property owners, got letters of acceptance for his building to remain, and then several of the members of the community showed up to speak, and the hearing examiner granted the variance. Now, I want to say this out loud. I don't have a want to make this man move his building. What I want is to establish a set of processes and procedures for our staff to issue a stop work order, because there's a disconnect. Even though they're standing next to one another right now, there's a disconnect between the state building code and zoning. And so zoning's looking at a properly placed building on the site, and the building department is not able to actually go and do inspections because of the private provider that got between our building department and the owner. And so we didn't know that the building had been inappropriately cited. The spot survey showed that it was where it's supposed to be. And then when we got to the final CO, it was encroaching on the side yard setback. If I'm not mistaken, it was a side and rear. So there was 2 setback encroachments.
How far?
And a minute. I mean, it was 30, 40 feet. It wasn't 2 feet. It was, now, the property owner to the north is a nice gentleman, so I'm told, who, and it's at the back of his property. You know, all of the properties in the estates are 660 feet deep. So if a person builds too close to the property line, it really isn't, his comment was, well, I never go back there anyway, but it may be, it may have a negative impact going forward. And so what I'd like to do is have a discussion, if we need to appeal the hearing examiner's decision, not necessarily to remand the owner of this building to tear it down and move it, but to establish some procedures for us so that we're not in a position here of having a building up and built and then requiring a variance before the CO, but a variance, we're aware of a violation of our side yard setbacks, because the majority of the people try to adhere to our code and our side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks. But we can certainly not, ever ascertain whether this was done on purpose or not, but bottom line, it's a violation of our codes, and when people ask the proper way, we make them adhere to our codes and our regulations. And this didn't occur with this instance. And then the man that built the building went and got the letters of approval of its location from the contiguous property owners. But I want to establish, as much as anything, I want to establish going forward so that our building department and zoning department aren't handcuffed by the Florida Building Code that prohibits inspections and a stop work order when a zoning violation in fact transpires.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I could just summarize very quickly, and I will try to be brief, but since 2004, the state of Florida, and many of you know this, ever since Hurricane Andrew, there used to be independently adopted building codes based off municipalities, authorities having jurisdiction, or counties. After Hurricane Andrew, the state of Florida adopted a statewide building code, and it simply said this: you as a county will still be in the building permit business, but you're going to operate under our code. And the state of Florida has the building code. You don't have a local county code, and any amendments to that code that would be more restrictive must be approved by the Florida Building Commission, which those members are assigned by the governor. At the end of the day, in 2004, there was legislation because so often in some of these smaller communities, they struggled with being able to get building permits out. So they allowed for these private providers to exist. Now, private providers must be licensed building officials, and up until recently, they were qualified by a professionally licensed engineer that could demonstrate that they were qualified in this practice. That legislation has since changed, and it continues to change, so much to a point where we probably spend more time with private providers. We're forced to charge them less money. It costs us more as an organization because we are a fee-restricted, fee-funded organization that does not impact the independent taxpayers, but those who actually that apply for building permits. But what happens is that Commissioner McDaniel's absolutely right. Unless we're invited to the site or unless we can demonstrate that it is a violation of the life safety code, we have no, our only role here is you as a board, you as the authority having jurisdiction, having that state license, state issued license building official that you must have in order to be in this business. You must issue a building permit, you must issue a certificate of completion or a certificate of occupation if they've met all those conditions, and a private provider makes that determination. And we have no right of appeal other than to file a willful ethics or a willful code violation back to the state, and willful is very, very hard to prove. So is it suspect that we had a survey that came in after 10 days when they poured their slab that said, nope, I am fully in compliance with the setbacks, and then on final inspection we find out they're off, and they're not just off by inches, not an indiscriminate amount, but a lot.
I think if I can paraphrase a little bit, you shared that you have the administrative capacity for like 10%. If there's an encroachment of 30 feet and the building's 32 feet, you can approve that administratively.
We can do that, and we're still charged. We have to audit every time they do an inspection. It's our job. We have to audit their inspection to make sure it's compliant, and that's where we spend a lot of time. The record keeping is all on us as well to do that.
And the other side of it is we withheld the CO on this particular building, so it couldn't legally be occupied. But there are other remedies other than just a variance request. The fellow has civil issues with his contractor and the private provider who supplied us with documentation that everything was okay. He could have been, as opposed to being issued the variance, he could have been forced to either relocate the building or buy land from the contiguous property owners and do a lot line adjustment in order to effectuate the proper setbacks and not negatively impact the surrounding areas. So
you're absolutely correct. And Commissioner, this code once existed in Collier County. It was removed in 2004 for some reason. So we are currently working with Mr. Klaskow's office, Doug Sposito and Fred Klum, our deputy building official as well as our building official are working with Jeff's office. And so we are revisiting the process based off of this and others. This happens often. Swimming pools, outbuildings, homes that are set in the wrong place. But we will be bringing back an item for you to consider in the future months.
Well, and when you do that, now I guess my question is do one of us need to file an appeal on the hearing examiner's decision, or
Well, the appeal will be by majority vote of the board. If you're going to do that, you have to do it this meeting, otherwise you're out of time.
I guess my question is an appeal necessary to have the discussion to change what we need to change?
I'm simply saying if you don't appeal it, if you don't appeal it now, you lose that right later.
So if we appeal it, we're saying we don't want the variance.
No, if you're appealing, you say you want to hear it. And as part of the hearing, Jamie could talk about alternatives.
right?
Okay. Commissioner Saunders.
So the decision by the hearing examiner was just last week. And so there's,
2 weeks ago.
has it been 2 weeks or?
It was issued on May 17th.
Oh, I thought it was, okay, now I understand why time is of the essence. I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. This may be one of those cases where literally the horse is out of the barn on this one, but maybe it's worthwhile as part of our evaluation of not having this happen again, to go ahead and appeal this, bring it back in 2 weeks or whatever time you can bring it back in, and let's hear what happened, and then make a decision as to, I don't really want to make somebody move a building. But at the same time, I don't want to reward somebody for doing something that quite frankly, who knows if it was intentional or not, but
We'll probably never know, in all sincerity.
somebody listening to this may very well be thinking, well, that's all we got to do is
Right.
get a
Get a private provider, and I just
Get a
I just
survey
got to
and-
use a whole bunch more of my property that I was previously prohibited from doing. So,
But we don't need to appeal this in order to correct the problem that led to it. So the question is, do we want to appeal this, bring the property owner to explain what happened?
That was my question. Is an appeal necessary for us to change the process?
Buzzy's raising his hand.
The appeal is not necessary to change the process. The appeal will be limited to this one particular instance of it. I'm simply saying that if you want to hear this, you have to appeal it now. That's all.
And I was just going to add, and this may not have any bearing, but as it's been indicated, from every adjoining property owner that touches that individual's lot, we have received letters of no objection, and there was an additional letter of or condition of additional landscaping to provide additional buffering for the from the facility from the neighbors.
The problem that I have with the variance is that getting neighbors to agree to it isn't really the standard for determining whether there should be a variance. It has to be a land-related hardship, not created by the property owner. And so there really isn't any basis for a variance. So the idea that the property owners next door didn't object to it to me, is irrelevant. What's relevant is, why did this happen? And can we keep it from happening again?
Well,
And so,
that's where the appeal may be requisite. I don't mean to interrupt you, sir.
no, go ahead.
The the hardship was created by somebody. Now, it didn't create health, safety, and welfare for the contiguous property owners, but the hardship was created by a third-party provider and/or the property owner that allowed for it to transpire. And then, per our laws, per our code, the only way he could actually occupy it was to receive the variance, but the variance isn't technically, it was a created need for a variance.
Well, I'll do this because I think we need to hear from the property owners to what happened. So I'll make a motion to appeal that decision so that we can at least hear what happened. And that'll help us make a better decision perhaps going forward.
And I think I'll second that motion.
All right.
Ozzy, you had your hand up. Do you want to add?
Just to put on the record that the staff's original recommendation was for denial, but just another is in hardship is a consideration that the decision-making bodies, the HECS or the BZA, can incorporate. Staff looked at more as just the inherent configuration of the land is what guided us to our recommendation of denial based upon the survey.
If for nothing else, the hardship determination can help us going forward with other variance requests and other circumstances that are prevalent by actually defining that hardship requisite in advance now. And then we can also have an update on our policies and procedures so that when another one transpires, we're ahead of it, not after it's built.
And speaking of policies and procedures, traditionally, summertime, you don't like to hear controversial items. Would this be an exception?
I would say yes, because it's already been granted by the hearing examiner, so we're just
we have to
reviewing a
hear it.
decision that's been made.
Yeah.
So I
I'm
think,
not worried about who's here, who's not.
Yeah.
We only have a certain time to appeal. We need to do it. So
Got
we have a
to.
motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
aye.
So moved.
Thank you. And that, by the way, is all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner LaCastro.
That was your summary, closing comment? Holy Dot. Right? I mean, come on, really, seriously, right? Unbelievable.
He's a timekeeper.
I want you to know, I kept time of all four of us. Dan doesn't count. You, my friend, tripled my time anyway. Two quick things. Let's make sure we use Alert Collier if we need to during these heavy rainstorm. Road washes out, lights are all down, and we have to send out something that says, remember, if lights are out, it's a 4-way stop, anything like that, pavement collapses, severe flooding somewhere where it's extremely deep but hard to tell. Let's make sure that, we're, if we can get use out of Alert Collier. Lastly, and all of us will go back and check our emails after this meeting, I'm really appreciative but very disappointed in some of the emails that we're all getting from some citizens about Amendment 4. I'm appreciative for the people that sent us really nice notes and said, thanks for letting us know what your moral compass is. I agree with it, I disagree with it, whatever, but understood that we weren't here telling people how to vote. The emails that say, I can't believe 5 old men just decided what women should do with their bodies. That's not what happened up here. I didn't tell anybody, go to the polls and vote. This will probably pass, as Commissioner Saunders said. I'll just speak for me, but I told people to vote their conscience, vote their opinion, but know the details of the fine print of what you're voting on. And I want my constituents, just as they ask frequently, what my moral compass is on gun control and, abortion and immigration and all kinds of things that I don't have jurisdiction over, but they want to know the kind of elected official they have in the seat. So I was proud to voice my personal views today, but I respect the views of others, and that's why it's on the ballot. But as we often see, sometimes people don't do their due diligence and they think they're voting for something very specific, and they are. It's just not the specific thing that they actually understand. So I'll just say that as a closing comment. I think that, we all stated our views today unanimously. We're reminding voters to do their due diligence, and it's an important vote on the ballot, and like anything else, we don't want people to vote alphabetically. That's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Saunders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything. That was the issue I was going to raise, was the one that Commissioner McDaniel raised. Just want to thank everybody for.
And I want the record to reflect that half of my time goes to Commissioner Saunders.
and Rick LaCastro still wins the award for the most time.
All-time award.
I hate all of you.
I've just got a few things I wanted to talk about. I visited DAS last week, and Mr. French and his crew have done a lot out there to turn this thing around. And one of the things that we talked about, in Building 5, to get rid of the rodent problem, they've got to get rid of they got to pull the ceiling down and clean things up and then put it back. So we have to rehouse dogs. They're doing a pretty good job of adoption back there, but there's still 10 to 15 dogs. And so one of the things that we talked about to maybe that we can encourage the public, every day that goes by, it costs us $30 to $50 per dog, per animal, to house. And the fees that we're charging range anywhere from 30 to 80. 80 for a puppy, 30 for an old dog. And so we're obviously never going to make money or never going to break even with those fees. So we thought about, what if we just waive the fees for a certain amount of time to encourage the public to get these things, and waive, it's the animal control officer? I want to say dog catcher. So if your dog gets out and he's brought to DAS, we're charging people $100 to $150 to reclaim their dog. I would like to see us be able to waive that on a first-time offense. And then if they don't fix the hole in the fence, or the dog, continues to get out, then we charge them. So that's one of the things.
I'll second that.
All right. So
I apologize, stepped out briefly. Commissioners, we intend to bring this back almost like we do contractors licensing. We really go with a 3-strike rule. We talk to you, we educate you. And as Mr. I&D Marino, who spent 32 years in federal law enforcement, he explained to the animal control officers, I also used to call them dog catchers, he said, I can't tell you how many times I had people in cuffs that never made it to jail. So just because we take the custody of an animal doesn't mean we need to impound it. We certainly want to focus on reuniting families. One of the policies we've put out is that if we find a stray, we're going to go door to door. And I don't care if we've got to use code enforcement or if I've got to go out myself. We will go door to door to try to reunite them. And We'll take a look at their fence, their enclosure, figure out what we need to do to keep that family together with their pet versus putting it on the backs of the taxpayers and putting that burden on staff. So we are committed to this. I've been in it now for about a month and a half. And I can tell you is that we've been there every day.
So I'm all for waiving the fees, and I think did you second it?
Yes.
You've got a fee schedule that this board implemented. I would suggest Jamie come back with an amendment to that fee schedule.
Just do it.
Well, we can go ahead and agree today
Today, and then Jamie can bring it back, yes.
that we're going to waive fees. I know staff does that periodically. Anyway,
It's by resolution, so it could be one and done.
Okay. So we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Congratulations. That's a good idea, Jamie. Second. Second, we had Mr. Shear stepped up and talked about the CPUD, which I thought he had some I thought it warranted discussion as far as us, not using the PUDs in our live local stuff. I guess my question is, do we want to discuss that, or do we want to send that to the AHAC and let them bring back some recommendations? Go ahead.
You want to?
I was just going to say, I would suggest just putting it on our agenda because we know what the issue is.
Right.
We've already dealt with it, and AHAC's going to support whatever we do to expand.
AHAC's going to support opening it up as much as possible.
Right.
And none of it,
So no need-
personally, I don't need to hear it. Personally, I don't need to hear it. We already made a determination to exclude PUDs at all. I don't think Mr. Shear is precluded from offering to purchase a piece of, I say him, or an affordable housing developer is precluded from buying a piece of commercial property and rezoning it to a higher density residential, and we can look at its impacts individually, but I don't want to open Pandora's box to the CPUDs or PUDs at all, period. As I've already expressed, I'm not all that skippy about live local in the first place because of the preemption on local government to have a say-so on its people, and I don't think we need to open that Pandora's box. When he was talking, I was listening, and he's not precluded from pursuing a piece of property. He just can't rely upon a theoretical approval through the Live Local Act on
Well, he could still purchase a property within the CPUD
Absolutely.
and ask for the increase in density.
We've got commercial
Okay, well,
zoning
let's solve
pieces
that.
of property that we just converted one before, I think before you became a commissioner at Goodlet and Pine Ridge Road. It used to be a Publix or a Winn-Dixie Center. And we converted it, Baron Collier owned the site, and we converted it to, it was C3, and we went to 16, and I think we even gave them more than 16 because there was a provision for some income-restricted housing.
Gotcha. So we have our strategic initiatives that'll handle that. So I didn't know that he could still.
I don't
do
think you
that.
can. I don't think you can purchase a portion of a PUD and just separate it from the rest of it. But that doesn't mean the board can't on an application do that. So I don't think it's as of right. I think it's going to require the board.
No, not as of right. He would have to come and ask.
It has to come. You have to ask for it.
He's asking for an as of right, and I don't want to do that. It has to be a specific application, and then we have to weigh all of the impacts on the nearby surrounding area, the traffic, ingress, and the whole thing.
I didn't know that as long as he's got the right to purchase and come ask, I'm happy with that. And then lastly, coming up on a future agenda item, I've been working on, in light of encouraging adoption for babies. Throughout the state of Florida, in various locations, there's what we call safe haven baby boxes that can be attached in the wall in an EMS station and be a place for a woman to place her baby in a controlled environment for that long and not be condemned for giving her baby up. It's a safe place to put that, and the baby comes out for adoption. So I was going to ask the county attorney if to explain the feasibility between using fire stations or the EMS. There's fire stations typically like in Ocala, but I think we have other options.
The board has the power on over the EMS stations. That's ours. As far as the decision to put these boxes in a firehouse, that would be the fire district's decision. A lot of our units are co-located, so I'm not sure it makes a difference practically, but
Well, we can do the EMS stations without further permission from anybody else.
you can do your EMS stations without any permission, yes.
Dot, do you have any idea how much one of those boxes are?
That's good.
Right.
Say that on the microphone so that it's record.
Can you go to the microphone, babe? Babe, put that on record.
Terry, you call me babe. They're about 20,000, I'm just guessing around that. There's a few maintenance fees. Action for Life is actually going to take it before the board to see if they could pay for one of those, if the county could maybe pay for a couple of them also. And just so you understand, as soon as that baby's placed in the safe haven box, an alarm goes off immediately. And a story was just told in Ocala that a baby was placed in there, and the fireman that rescued the baby. Sorry, we've been working on this for a while, but he adopted the baby. So.
Nice.
Awesome. Thank you.
Outstanding.
All right. So we'll bring that for future.
Commissioners, I'll get you a list of the owned EMS stations. There aren't that many that are standalone. Then we have co-located where we have ownership, so that would be in the ownership. And then there are the co-located stations that are owned by fire and we're there by lease. So we've got 26 locations in Collier County that are EMS, and we can get a breakdown of those.
Yes, sir.
And check the Florida statutes, because there's statutory language dealing with where you can drop the babies off.
I have. I
Okay.
checked the section. We're fine here.
So I'll get an executive summary prepared, and you can include that in that.
Sure. And we're happy to. I can have Chief Choate talk with the fire districts as well to see if there's any willingness to participate.
I love
Right.
it. That's a great idea.
Good. All right. Good day today. Thanks everybody. We're adjourned.